This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wrestling Omakase. It is episode number 125, and it is the final stop on our year in review journey, the final year in review episode for 2019. So this is the one we always do last. It's the third year doing this, and we always save New Japan Pro Wrestling for last, and we've got a real all-star panel as far as Voices of Wrestling podcast hosts who cover New Japan. All three of you have been on the show before, I think, but never together. So it is very, very momentous occasion. First of all, have to give him billing because he technically owns the place. Mr. Joe Lanza, the Voice of Wrestling flagship. What's up, Joe?
Yeah, I'm fired up. I'm ready to do some championship audio. I've been on this show many times before. I did audio with Damon once before. I wiped the floor with him on the Joe Gagney gimmick. What's
five-star match game.
Absolutely wiped the floor with him on the New Japan edition of the 5-star match game. So I've done audio with Damon, and I don't think I've ever done audio with Joel. What time is it in like Beijing or wherever the hell you are? What time is it over there?
In Xiamen, it is 6 minutes past 9 in Saturday morning. So pretty good hour for me.
Oh, this worked out for everybody then. This isn't bad at all. Okay.
Yeah. 8 p.m. We're 8 p.m. on the East Coast where me and Damon are, and 7 p.m. right where you are, your Central Time, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe Lanza's here. He just spoiled the other two guests, but yes, from the Super J cast, we have Joel and Damon here. Again, both have been on the show, but never together on Omakase. So welcome, Joel. Welcome, Damon. What's up?
It is absolutely my pleasure. Yeah, absolutely. As we'll do, I'm sure. Just like on the Super J case, I'll talk all over Joel as he tries to make a point. But I do remember that match game, and I'm always terrible at trivia and remembering. And I think I bombed on. I think
Taichi, David.
Yeah, legitimately was the easiest question. I totally wiped out, and then I panicked from there, and then I couldn't get anything right. So I stink at that trivia stuff, but it's always fun. And of course, we met finally in person at G1. So Joe's a Jersey boy just like myself. So
and me.
That's right. And
3 out of 4.
All right. So listen, we got to find a little Jersey spot for Joel. I think he's a Cherry Hill kind of guy. I don't know about anybody else.
And we got three native New Jerseyans on the podcast here. I don't know what that means exactly, but I don't know where the New Jersey New Japan connection. Maybe it's the word new.
Gabagool.
Gabagool. But yeah, so we're all here to discuss New Japan Pro Wrestling 2019. Now, of course, we always like to start off Omakase with anime talk. And Joe, I know you watched the entire catalog of Madoka to prepare, so I'm sure you took notes, and I'm ready for you to give me your Pula Magi Madoka quote. I can't even get it out. What's your Madoka thoughts, Joe? Go ahead.
Fucking anime talk. Like I've said many times, the last anime I've ever seen is Voltron. Okay, that's all I can talk. I can talk Voltron all day long. That's all I got for you, though.
I've never seen the Voltron. No.
does that count as anime? Is that
I don't know. Is Voltron anime? Let's see.
Well, it's a cartoon, and it's from Japan. So, I mean...
Is it from Japan? I didn't even know that.
Voltron? I think so.
I know they rebooted it on, like, fucking Netflix, which I know that's not Japanese. Let's see here.
Joel, do you know what any of these words are? I don't even know what to tell you.
Voltron 19... okay. So it's one of these fucking shows that was animated in Japan, but it was made, like, for America. Like, it was not a Japanese show created for Japan that was then translated and brought here. It was like fucking NBC hired Toei Animation to animate it for them. Like G.I. Joe.
What do you want from me? I was like 8 years old. I don't know.
Did you know G.I. Joe was also a Japanese production and an all-American hero?
It makes sense. So it all looks the same. Voltron, G.I. Joe, and Transformers all had like the same animation. So it makes sense.
So there you go. I don't know if we should count Voltron as anime. Maybe I'll let the listeners decide. They can debate that at home. But yeah, I mean, I lied. The real thing we're all here to discuss is obviously Kenny Omega and Michael Nakazawa on Wrestlers Waiting Room Service. Have you even seen that, Joe and Damon? I know Joel's seen it. Have you even seen that yet?
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I took 2 Xanax for this. It's I can't believe it just feels like I just took a time machine and went back a year, and we can't get this guy. We can't stop talking about him. It's impossible to get him out of our hair. He's just a pest girlfriend at this point. It's just constantly bad. We broke up long ago, a year ago. Stop. Leave us alone. We're happy without you. Please.
I don't know. Anyone have any other thoughts on that fucking video? It was something.
I mean, I remember Nick Jackson saying one time, all cocky the way Nick Jackson likes to talk, never be a mark for the place you're working, only be a mark for yourself. And I was like, okay, that's probably decent advice for a pro wrestler, right? I mean, that's pretty reasonable advice. But it sure seems like they're heartbroken that ROH and New Japan, didn't show them their proper respect and didn't want to keep using them. And it kind of runs counter to that point. I mean, it seems like they're being marks for New Japan and Ring of Honor as opposed to being marks for themselves. I mean, they're off doing their own thing. They've got tremendous executive vice president contracts and their own promotion with their own little playground. And I don't understand a year on why they're so heartbroken is the only word I could come up with over not only New Japan, but it seemed like ROH as well. At least to me.
The Bucks for sure. I don't think obviously Kenny, I don't think gives a fuck.
Yeah,
but the Bucks, that definitely did seem like. Watching that video. I mean, I set that up as a joke, but now we're seriously discussing it. Watching that video, I mean, it really comes down to like, I really can't tell if they believe their own bullshit on this or if this is like their spin, because I mean, they kind of said this on the show where like Nick and Matt were kind of like, we still get this a lot from fans. If you look at the mentions, pretty much, you can't fucking throw a stone without running into somebody saying, when's New Japan and AEW going to team up? So I'm sure if we see it, I'm sure they see it, in their fucking mentions every goddamn day. So
that's why they deleted Twitter, John.
That's probably why they deleted Twitter. It's true. But yeah, I don't know. I just assume that like, they have to spin it a certain way, but like it doesn't really make a ton of sense why you'd still be talking about it. And like that video, you notice how long Kenny talks about what he's done in AEW? It's like 30 seconds. They spend like 13 minutes on New Japan and like, complaining and, about how their exit went and they, we didn't get medals of honor for setting up a direct competitor. And then they're like, all right, so it's time to talk about AEW. Kenny's like, yep, I have a women's division I'm doing. And then it's like, credits. And I'm like, what? Why is the AEW portion? It's like Joe just said, you have your own promotion and you're doing like 14 minutes on New Japan and like a minute at the very end on AEW. And it almost comes off like Kenny doesn't really have much to say about AEW, which is Interesting. That's about, I guess, the best word.
What is it? He's booking the third tier of their women's division.
Yeah.
There's not that much to say, is there? And I understand him being heartbroken about the New Japan thing because he was a big deal there, and he obviously felt he was part of the fabric, and he's really into living in Japan and all that. But the Bucks, for them to be thinking that they were on the same level, I don't think they were ever over in any meaningful way in New Japan. So for them to be expecting to get flowers thrown at them for their exit was very weird.
I mean, look, everybody really missed him at the end of the World Tag League this year to just show up and be like, by the way, we weren't in this, but tag title shot the dough. How about it? I mean, I'm sure everybody was broken up about it. It's
almost like they expected New Japan and maybe even Ring of Honor to just be dying to do business with AEW, which from a fan perspective, it'd be nice if they could all get along and do business with each other. I don't think any of us would be all that opposed to it, and it opens up some interesting possibilities. But you could also understand why New Japan would be like, I don't know, go kick rocks. Go do your thing, and we'll do our thing. And we're not all. I could understand why they wouldn't be interested in that, especially knowing that they were going to roll out these, New Japan of America plans and run more shows here. It's just, man, it just really came off whiny and as if they were heartbroken, and the tone was just weird. It was just weird. You'd think that they'd be happy and thrilled with, getting everything they ultimately wanted out of this. And I don't know. It was a bizarre, 28 minutes or whatever it was.
Right. This is
I think
not
it was like 15.
Yeah. This is not like it's two guys or three guys that are sitting at home, unemployed, just kind of, waiting for a contract to expire. They have what every pro wrestler would dream about at this point. And if you're starting a new promotion and you're trying to launch something that already has a buzz and is popular and people are excited for, I would think that you would be 100% focused on that. And it feels like that there's at least a portion of his brain, and all three of them, that are just focused on, and it doesn't even feel like New Japan. Like I find it hard to believe that this would be something that, I missed fucking Dontaku, right? They care about now because they're sitting at home like, the dome's happening and we're not there. That big payday.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, all right. Well, yeah, you're right. Because we haven't used you all year because there hasn't been a need to. Because as Joe said, we're going this way, you're going that way, and we'll meet up sometime.
Yeah, and I read like
the thing that New Japan really needs the Bucks and the Elite for is the Western expansion. And now they can't work in the States because they're AEW contracts. So what use are they to New Japan at this point?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what I was going to say was I read like a Sports Illustrated interview too, where like Kenny did a couple weeks ago, where he seemed to be really down on the idea of not being in the G1 too. Like he said something like, I kind of thought I'd always be there. And I feel like when we talk about them having it all, it does feel like they really thought when they made this AEW thing and when they started it, that it would include working New Japan, it would include working the G1, it would include working Wrestle Kingdom. And it does feel like they have something missing, even though they quote unquote, should have it all. They really expected this and they really had, that expectation. And they do feel, I guess, a little bit lost without it.
Right. But here's the thing. The common denominator is them. Right. So again, New Japan is willing to work with an overpriced Chris Jericho. He's willing to work with Moxley. They're the common denominator. So maybe, just thinking outside the fucking box here, maybe they might be difficult to work with. Maybe they might be the issue in all this, where we really don't feel like dealing with your dramatic bullshit, to be quite honest with you. They don't have a problem with anybody else.
They're going to post about you on Reddit now.
Okay, well, I mean, that's the truth, though, but that's the common denominator. I don't give a shit. It's the common denominator, and the facts is that New Japan has proactively not wanted to work with them. And sorry.
Yeah, I mean, in Kenny's case, he probably sees it as a real kick in the dick because, like you said, they're willing to work with Jericho. They're willing to work with Moxley. And from what I understand, Moxley's schedule with New Japan is only going to grow next year. And Kenny specifically put it in his contract to allow himself to work New Japan.
Right.
And they just they don't want him. And as for the Bucks, I'm sure they have no interest in. The only interest they would have in the Bucks is working American shows. And don't forget, AEW and New Japan did have that meeting about 11 or 12 months ago, and I had somebody in the room in that meeting texting me during the meeting, not letting me know everything what was going on, but at least the gist of it. So they did all sit down at the table, and I'm sure New Japan would have been willing to do business with AEW if they could use those guys on their American shows. But once Tony Khan said, no, none of my guys are working American shows, what use are any of those people to New Japan?
Right.
They're, you could argue Kenny may be in Japan, but they're doing fine without him. The Bucks then become utterly useless, as does Adam Page, as does Cody. If you can't use those guys in America, then there's no point doing business with them at all. So let's not forget that they were in a room together and did try to hammer something out, just nothing came of it. And don't get me wrong, I don't blame Tony Khan at all for saying, I don't want my guys working for anybody else in America. That's totally reasonable from his perspective. But, that's the way it shook out. And, and like Damon said, there's no question that Kenny Omega probably feels a little extra insulted that Chris Jericho and Moxley are on this Wrestle Kingdom card in a couple days and he's not.
Yeah. So that's that. I guess we can transition easily, though, because obviously one of the biggest stories of New Japan's 2019 was losing the Elite as of 1/4, no longer having them there. And, I will say, I'm sure this will qualify as a hot take to some people. I think it's a huge factor for why I enjoyed 2019 a lot more than 2018. And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. First of all, 2019 versus 2018, but also the Elite part of it. And my case here is going to be, I don't think anybody who's a big New Japan fan really misses the Bucks in New Japan. I mean, they were fine to have on bigger shows or US shows, but the tag division in New Japan is not important, not a big deal. Adam Page, that to me is a low key bigger loss than you might think of at first. I think he really was starting to break out in the G1, but ultimately mid card guy, not a big deal. Cody, addition by subtraction. I mean, it's working out great for him in America, and that's what he was meant to do. He's an American pro wrestler. He's a million times better in AEW than he ever was in New Japan. I mean, he's just not at all, just not having him on New Japan undercards is great. So the guy you're talking about obviously losing is Kenny, and that's the one I think, you can debate, and I'm sure it is a loss, even if you don't, even if you didn't love his matches, even if you were a little more down on them. I mean, that's the only one of the four of the group that you can really feel as a loss. But on the other hand, to me, losing the Elite has made New Japan more narratively coherent. It's made it feel less like there's this other fucking group just doing their own thing. You have to watch Being the Elite to figure out what the hell's going on in the storylines. All that is gone. So it feels much more narratively coherent without the Elite than it did with the Elite. And I think that's a big reason why I prefer this year to 2018. Joe, why don't we start with you? What do you think about any of that? 2019 versus 2018 and what losing the Elite has meant to New Japan's year?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with how you broke down each of the talents. Kenny's really the only one that matters, and really the only one where you can make an argument that he'd make any sort of difference if he was still around. Look, he's still a major star in Japan, and whether you like his work or not, I think everyone would, of a reasonable mind, would concede that. And I'm sure that if he had made the decision to stay with New Japan instead of leaving for AEW, they would have kept him. I mean, there's no question about that. But yeah, I agree. All the others, essentially just roster filler, extra guys to have around. And as far as 2018 versus 2019, I don't know whether it's because the Elite weren't around or whatnot, but all these years tend to blend together for me. But I think what 2019 had that 2018 did not was sort of the elevation and the emergence of Will Ospreay and Shingo. Now, would they have had room to grow the way they did if the Elite were still around, clogging up, the upper mid cards? I don't know. But I think to me, that's the big difference between 19 and 18.
What do you think, Damon?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there when it comes to guys getting a little bit more shine with the Elite, moving on to, quote, greener pastures. Shingo, even a guy like Lance Archer or Taichi, or countless others that might have been still stuck in that middle of the pack and have been elevated, and a new focus is put on them. Look, New Japan, you can't hand wave the fact that A, they develop talent better than just about anybody else, and B, they do a great job of keeping people on a back burner, just keeping them warm enough so that when situations like this arise, at the beginning of the year, it seemed like we were going through this every year for the past couple of years, they're able to elevate guys rather quickly and put them in a prominent role. And look at Jay White. I mean, to me, look, I cannot discount the match quality and the absolute pro wrestling value that Kenny Omega has in ring. He put on some of the greatest matches that I've ever seen, whether it be live or on tape. I can't dispute that. But I love the fact in 2019 that where Jay White is. I love in 2019 where Ibushi is. I love in 2019 where Shingo is. I like where these guys are positioned a lot more than, say, this time last year when, we were kind of in this bit of a limbo flux stage, kind of rooting for Tanahashi, who arguably is well past his prime, to take a title off of Kenny.
Joel, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I personally, just towards the back half of 2018, I was getting really sick of having to talk about all the drama and all the bullshit. We get questions every week, and whatever we say, people will get annoyed, to the point at which we had Andrew Rich make a stinger, that the Kenny's done a thing stinger specifically to deal with that. So I'm glad that's gone. My biggest complaints with 2018 were absentee champions, and also to a lesser extent, the lack of a payoff to the Bullet Club versus Elite feud. But it was mainly the former, because we had Omega with the IWGP title, who wasn't appearing on a lot of tours. We had Chris Jericho with the Intercontinental title and Cody with the US title. They all go missing for prolonged periods of time. And we don't have that anymore. The people who are holding those belts are there more often than not, and they're able to defend those titles regularly and build up feuds to them. So I think that's been a big improvement. And like Damon said, I think Kenny being gone has given Jay White a huge opportunity as well. He's knocked it out of the park. And that transition is, I think, what made Wrestle Kingdom 13 such an interesting show, because it really felt like the finale of a TV season.
Would anyone unequivocally take 2018 over 2019? Would anyone be like, yeah, 2018 was way better? Because I don't think it's close. I think 2019 killed it. But if anyone argues otherwise, I'd love to hear it.
I don't know if it was a blowaway, but I don't think I can't speak for everybody, but I'll speak for me. How about that? I enjoyed 19 as a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, head and shoulders above 18.
Joe?
Like I said, they tend to blend together for me, but it's like I said in my first answer. I think the Willow Spray and Shingo stuff is what really sets 2019 apart. When I think back at 2019 New Japan, that'll be the first thing I think of. How those two guys emerged and had such incredible years, not just for New Japan, but on a wider scale, on a worldwide basis, they may have been the two best wrestlers in the world. So I think Okada had a better year in 18. And, that's your champion. So there's something to be said for that. But yeah, I'd say I would take 19 over 18, yeah.
And Joel, I don't know, I think you kind of already said you were great, but in case you want to add anything else.
No, I just think 2019 has been more consistently good from January to December, because 2018, I thought the first half of it was terrific and it peaked with Dominion, but then it really tailed off towards the latter half of the year.
Yeah. The one thing, my hot take that people might not expect from me is I actually missed Kenny a little more than I thought I would. And where I realized I missed him was even if I didn't root for him, and even if a lot of his matches really got, excessive for me and stuff, especially in the 2018 G1, where I thought probably that the excessiveness and all that peaked, I really missed having him as like an opponent for people I really enjoy. So I missed having him as a Naito opponent. I love all their matches in the G1, and I missed having him as an Ishii opponent. not as much an Okada opponent because I've never been as into those matches as most people, but even still, at this point, I would take it over fucking Kenny versus Kip Sabian or whatever the fuck. So I did miss Kenny more than I thought I would in New Japan, but I do think without not having him there, definitely did open up that opportunity for all these other people to emerge, like we all said. So the other big topic I think for this year, and again, I'd love to see if someone disagreed. I think when I'm going to think back at 2019, I'm going to think of it as the year of the tournament, where to me, New Japan's always been a very tournament-heavy promotion, and they always have really good tournaments. But I think the quality difference between the tournaments and the non-tournaments this year was maybe the biggest it's ever been. Not because the non-tournament stuff was bad. I mean, a lot of it was still very good. But I thought they had the best New Japan Cup ever, probably the best of Super Junior ever, and a strong argument for the best G1 ever, all in the same year. So I think this year, when I think back to 2019, I'm going to remember how good those three tournaments were. I don't know, Joel, do you have anything to add about the tournaments or the quality of them?
Yeah, I want to give some love to the Super Junior Tag League as well, because I thought that was very, very good. Really underrated. There weren't any bad matches in that.
True. I didn't realize you were done already. Damon, go ahead. Do you have anything to say about the corner?
Yeah, I mean, Joel kind of stole the thunder there, but that junior tag, I really enjoyed that a ton. And even to a lesser degree, and I know that there was issues with getting shows up in a timely fashion, but Super J Cup wasn't that bad either. I mean, everybody can kind of poo-poo World Tag League, and sometimes that can be a bit of a struggle to get through in most years. I can't say this year was remarkably different, but they had some highlights in there that I'll remember. Night one was not a bad show at all. So yeah, I mean, between the New Japan Cup, G1, which is always spectacular, the best of the Super Juniors, Junior Tag League. Yeah, I mean and look, it's hard because one seems to blend into another. And if you look at our year-end awards, they're almost, the top matches are G1s and best of the Super Juniors and, night 7. And, when you have that kind of talent and that kind of run with your tournaments, it's hard to kind of differentiate between, good, tournament, bad tournament, and non-tournament. It all kind of blends together. But yeah, I mean, 2019, you could probably say safely that it's the year of the tournament.
Every tournament was better than the one the year before, all of them across the board. And you can make a reasonable argument that 4 of the tournaments were the best version of those tournaments of all time. Yeah. I mean, Super Junior Tag League doesn't have a deep and storied history, but I mean, it was the best Super Junior tournament, whether the league or the single elimination knockout version that preceded it. This was the best one ever. And you can make a reasonable argument. I think it was the best Super Juniors ever. I've firm in that opinion. G1, I mean, those are always so great that they're starting to blend together for me in terms of I have a hard time parsing them out. But if you wanted to tell me this was the best G1 ever, I wouldn't argue with you. And I think someone had mentioned that the New Japan Cup. I'd say this was the best New Japan Cup ever.
I would. I don't think it's close, actually. You
got 4 tournaments. That's 4 of them that you could argue are the best ever. So I mean, that's actually remarkable, and I don't think enough people are talking about that.
Yeah. And what's that? 6 months out of a calendar year? You add them all up together, you squish them all together. I mean, that's a huge portion of your year is built around those tournaments. And arguably, you're getting the best pro wrestling that you can find for your money during that time span. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue against it.
I mean, it does leave, obviously, the problem of setting that bar this year is obviously you have a very high bar to clear in 2020. But I think they're going to try because, I mean, if you look at the schedule that just came out for the New Japan Cup, they actually added a date, so any thought that they're going to go back to 16-man that's out the window. Clearly, I mean, it's going to be 32 again. So
yeah, but you know what? I remember saying that in 2014, John. And in 2050, like, how are they going to be? These guys are killing themselves. How could they possibly top that in the 2015 come? And holy shit, they did it again. And it's been every year they've raised that bar. I listen. I'm not betting against them because every year I'm like, well, they can't possibly be better than that. No, guess what? They did. So it's like, how could you bet against them at this point?
Yeah, it's a fair point. So let's start chronologically. Back at Wrestle Kingdom 13. This would be the one thing, I think based on what I've read from other people and stuff, it's hard to say because what you're not going to say it's a bad show. It was still a great show, but for me, it was below, the last few Wrestle Kingdoms at least. And I think, there was a feeling, watching it that it was a little bit rushed, which, you look at the shorter match times up until the double main, which I've heard was a big complaint among even the Japanese fans leaving the building. I've heard that they just thought the show was too short. You still can't really complain about the major matches. I thought Tanahashi Omega was, really good, and Naito and Jericho was, on my match of the year list, which was kind of unexpected, honestly, and wasn't a match I was that excited for. But overall, it did feel a little bit less. And that Ishimori Kushida match just being kind of nothing, I think hurt it a little bit as far as a fourth from the top match and, Cody stinking up the mid card and stuff. So, really good show for anything else. But to me, at least, I didn't think Wrestle Kingdom 13 was at the level of the last few. I don't know, Joe, what did you think?
I thought it was a great show. I didn't think, aside from Juice and Cody, which really just didn't work. And Ishimori Kushida was disappointing. I didn't think it was a bad match, though. I just thought it didn't. It's one of those matches that just doesn't peak where you think it's going to peak. That's going to happen. Everything else, I thought, met expectations or far exceeded them as far as the rest of the show. And what might separate me and you is I absolutely loved the Will Ospreay Kota Ibushi match and the finish of that match. That to me is one of the most memorable. The finish of that match is one of the most memorable moments of the year in all of wrestling, not just New Japan. And it's one of the moments I'll think about forever when I think about 2019. And just because the match was so good, the finish was so good, and it represented so much for the elevation and the push that was to come for Will Ospreay. So I thought the opener, was phenomenal. And the main event, I thought, just told a great bell-to-bell story with Tanahashi and Omega. I thought that match was phenomenal. Naito Jericho was fucking awesome, and I think exceeded just about everyone's expectations. I thought it was going to be good, but it was great. And Jay White Okada with sort of the flash finish, which I thought was some brilliant booking and brilliant storytelling, and I love the fuck out of that match. So, and Saber Ishii is a match that it's one of those. Every year there's a match at Wrestle Kingdom that gets lost in the shuffle in the discussion because it's the sixth best match or something, but it's still an awesome match. And that's what that one was to me. And, the tag stuff is what it is. I'm so sick of the three ways, but, both of them, at least I go into those matches grumpy. And the way I look at it is if it's a match I don't want to see and I'm already grumpy and then it entertains me, then that's a win. And they both entertained me. So, I thought the show was awesome, but I may be higher on some of those moments than you were, which is sort of the difference between you thinking, it's a pretty good show, and me thinking, wow, that's a show of the year contender.
Joel, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a fantastic show. I think Wrestle Kingdom 12 was more consistently good. There weren't any bad matches on Wrestle Kingdom 12. From the first match to the last match, Wrestle Kingdom 12 was very, very good. There weren't any kind of filler matches. But for Wrestle Kingdom 13, I think maybe people don't think of it as fondly because there was that junior three-way tag, which only went, about 6.5 minutes. The heavyweight three-way tag was only about 10 minutes. The Juice Cody match was bad. So I think those things may be sort of clouding people's opinion because they weren't great, those matches. But I thought for the top three matches, it peaked really, really high because the Jay White Okada match, Naito Jericho, Tanahashi Omega, all three of those matches were in my top 10 matches of the year. I love those. I thought, as Joe said, that Jay White Okada match made Jay White into a star. Naito Jericho was better than it had any right to be. And Tanahashi Omega, I absolutely adored that match for a number of reasons. And again, like I said before, it just felt all of these match finishes felt very conclusive, particularly the ones involving the guys from the Elite. It was like, no, this guy's leaving, so he's going to conclusively take the defeat and make the other guy look good. So that, for the example, with the Ishimori Kushida match, that wasn't a close match. It wasn't like there was an exciting closing stretch where they go back and forth, reversing each other's finishes. This was like, no, Ishimori's a strong guy here. He's won it very comfortably. So I think there was that theme to Wrestle Kingdom 13 as well.
Yeah. Damon?
Having a live perspective, the one thing that will always, I'll take to my grave, is the fact that everyone in that building hated Jay White, right? For all the right pro wrestling reasons, right? Hated Jay White, hated the fact that Okada's, best bud and business manager turned on him with the weakest chair shot in the history of pro wrestling. And that match took you on a pro wrestling emotional roller coaster where you went in and the lights went down and Okada's music hit and he came out like the Okada of old after spending a year in his funk, in his depression with his fucking balloons and all that nonsense. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's back, right? And the music hits and the money's falling from the sky and everybody is on just, that, and I'll put in air quotes, that reserved Japanese crowd was not reserved. They were losing their minds. And then off with the pants and on with the shorts and maybe a highlight of the year, right? Something as small and subtle as that. And then the match itself and Okada's, somewhat dominant, and then boom, one mistake, and then good night. And that was it. And one of the best things that New Japan does is you don't always go home happy. And I love that. And I just sat in that chair at the Tokyo Dome with a grin on my face from ear to ear because I loved every second of that match because it took me on that pro wrestling ride that, you do it when you were a kid, you do it when you were a teenager, you do it when you're an adult. And that's why we watch this stuff, right? And it hit the mark at every single point. And it had me hook, line, and sinker. And I was smiling ear to ear at the end of that match. So that match stood out to me as one of the great moments of Wrestle Kingdom.
Now, of course, since you and Joel are in the building, you did get to see the entire Kenny's Quest video. So you had that going for you.
Look,
so you savor every moment.
I had no idea what the fuck it was. I'm sitting right next to the guy who cosplays as Red Shoes. He was outside taking pictures with everybody. And I walked down to my seat and it's him. And we're like, hey, we hug. We buy each other's beers. We're great. Anyway, the night goes on. This video comes on and it's like a 20-minute, short story with video games and 8-bit bullshit. And I don't know what the hell's going on. And I'm thinking, is this guy ever going to come out to the fucking ring? I got a train to catch here. And we're just staring at each other and we're shoulder shrugging and I don't know what the hell's going on. And then finally it comes out. So you're talking to the wrong dude. I don't know what the fuck that was. I still don't to this day.
You put the entire thing on the Beanie Elite channel. People don't know what it is, but yeah, that fucking thing is something. But yeah, so the Wrestle Kingdom show, I'm glad you guys liked it more than I did. I mean, I still thought it was a really good show. It's just, I just think the last few Wrestle Kingdoms were a little better. So,
I had 5 matches, 4 1/4 or better. I mean, that's an all-time show. It's like Damon was saying before, this company just raises the bar so often that it's like, we're having this conversation. I never thought of this as an all-time show until just now when I'm really looking at my notes and hearing people talk about it. And it's like, that's a fucking all-time show. The problem is all of these Wrestle Kingdoms are all-time shows. And then we're judging them against each other. And that's where you kind of get in trouble. You know what I mean? It's like there wasn't, another wrestling company this year that probably put together a top to bottom show as good as this. But, some people are like, this is an okay Wrestle Kingdom. When in reality, it's one of the better shows that we've seen in years. But it's just
that's like saying you got an okay Porsche. Yeah, you know what I mean? You got an okay Porsche for Christmas.
Yeah, you got the C-Class BMW, but you still have a BMW. Right. You know, it's that. And Joel made a great point about Kushida Ishimori in that Kushida was leaving, and that match was booked for Ishimori to be dominant. I mean, he just ate him up in a good way, not in you know, a Hideki Suzuki way where he just goes into business for himself, but he ate him up because that's the way the match was laid out and designed. So it's like sometimes a match isn't designed to be a great match. You know what I mean? And I know it was like disappointing in the moment for a lot of people, but that match was booked the right way because the guy that was sticking around, who was going to be the junior champion for the first half of the year or whatever it was, until he lost to Dragon Lee, I think. You know, yeah, they wanted to show, okay, Kushida's leaving. He's been the junior ace for a half a decade. We want this guy to be dominant over that junior ace so that we can move forward with this dude as the champion, and his victory will mean that much more if he just dominates this guy. So there's that aspect of matches too that sometimes you have to look at.
What I will never forget about Kushida's exit from the company is later in the month of January when he has that main event against Tanahashi, which is a great match, by the way, if you happen to miss that on the Road to New Beginning Korakuen. And then Jay White, because he was feuding with Tanahashi for New Beginning Osaka for the title, like comes out and lays out Tanahashi after the match and kind of ruins that moment. And as they're leaving, Jay White turns and goes, "Oh, I almost forgot. Bye, Kushida." And then Gato just turns back and goes, "Who cares? Who cares?" She's screaming it. My girlfriend, to this day, my girlfriend still randomly quotes that because she just found that so fucking funny. Gato just screaming, "Who cares?" at the top of his lungs as they leave Korakuen Hall. So I'll never forget that moment, honestly.
Fantastic. It's just fantastic stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, the New Beginning tour, that's a good transition again. I love this tour. I thought it was one of my favorite New Beginnings in a while. And the big thing for me is I thought the Suzuki-gun versus LIJ stuff was just really good, especially the build-up. I know we did these top 10 lists for the new ebook, the top 10 match of the year list. And Case Lowe, the perennial young boy, actually had the elimination match between Suzuki-gun and LIJ as his 10th place match. And I can't kill him for that because that match was awesome. You know, those elimination matches are always like a certain baseline level of good, but this one was like really good. So all the build-up stuff was great. The actual Naito Taichi match I know is divisive. I'm firmly on the side of I thought it was like a fucking 4.5 star match, an awesome match. I get why some people can't separate it from the pre-match attack, which did go on forever, and the angle before Naito came back out did go on forever, so I totally get why that dragged it down for some people. But I thought once the bell rings and once Naito's back in the ring, I thought all of that was awesome. Just, you know, I rewatched that the other day just to prepare to make sure it holds up, and it really holds up, at least for me. I mean, Naito giving that pile driver off the apron, and Taichi just tossing him on the back of his head, and Naito's selling like he's dead. Just such an awesome match. And really the beginning of Taichi's coming out party that would happen over the course of the year. So, Damon, do you have any memories from the New Beginning tour?
Well, unfortunately, some of those memories might not be as great. I remember the New Beginning USA tour with the visa issues.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. that was a headache. Yeah. I mean, and they were, you know, look, they from everything that we were told, they had their ducks in a row. It was just the timing was poor, and they got caught behind it. And again, it wasn't just them. I mean, there were bands that couldn't make it into the country, and other entertainment acts are having their issues as well. Yeah, you're right.
But Damon, now Tracer X and Harlem Bravado are in the New Japan record books forever. And
that's true.
We never would have had that otherwise.
That's a good point. That is a good point, and I'm sure that they're going to put that on their resume.
Can you explain to me how they snuck the Great Okarn into the country and couldn't get anybody else over here? Which
I think he had the visa already, I think, which is funny. But they're like, we gotta get Great Okarn a visa. Like somebody had the foresight to get Great Okarn a visa.
So not only did he work that little swing, He then disappeared for like 8 months off the planet, and everybody thought he retired.
I know.
So it was just totally, everything about that was just completely bizarre. But anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it was bizarre. And, you know, when you're trying to get answers of as to the whys, and look, there are still people that travel for these shows and these type of shows, knowing full well that, you know, they're not going to get, you know, G1 at the Grady Cole Center in North Carolina. But they travel, and you know, some people panicked and rightfully so, in the sense that nobody's showing up. These shows were, you know, your Trent Berettas and your, you know, Chuck E. T's and you know, that of the world.
Excuse me, sir. Put some respect on Lifeblood. Okay.
My bad.
They had to scramble just to get the best friends. I mean, they did them a favor, basically.
Yeah,
because they're already on their way out.
So you know, but you know, this was the beginning of Taichi, and I was on the camp anti-Taichi for the longest time. You know, you would look at the stuff in Noah, and you would look at the stuff early in this New Japan run, and he was an instant fast forward. He was just somebody that you just, this guy. And then now, again, I've said it 1,000 times on the JCast, but it's been this roster is all about guys getting tapped on the shoulder. And when it's time for them to shine, and when it's time for them to perform, they do it, and they can. And I think this is a perfect example. And this was one of those matches where it was like, okay, if you were in that camp of anti-Taichi and you know, hand waving them and fast forwarding, this was maybe the beginning, at least it was for me anyway, of maybe I'll give this guy a second chance. Maybe I'll give this guy, you know, if it's a matchup that on paper sounds a little bit sexy, you know, it might not be an instant skip. So yeah, you're right, John. This was the beginning of a lot of people that were anti-Taichi, maybe giving him a second look.
And Joel, do you have anything to add about any of the new beginning stuff?
Yeah, I remember being in Kraken Hall for New Year Dash and no sign of the Elite on that card, which was a surprise because, as we talked about before, you know, maybe they were expecting some sort of send-off for that, but there was a really strongly built Suzuki-gun versus LIJ feud going on. And I remember at the end of that, Taichi standing over Naito, holding up the IC title, and we had Suzuki and Zack tying up Evil and Sanada in their submission moves, and then we had something going on with Shingo Bushi and Kanemaru Desperado. And I thought, this is really exciting. This is what I want from New Japan. And I was really looking forward to these new beginning shows. And we had some really good singles matches. Suzuki against Sanada was good. Evil against Zack was really good. And on night 2, the Naito Taichi match, I thought that was the Taichi dilemma in a nutshell, because the first 10-15 minutes annoyed a lot of people because they, you know, there is a chair shot angle. People were thinking, this is just bullshit, this is boring, this is taking too long. But then when the match actually started, it was really exciting. So that was sort of the Taichi problem in a nutshell for me. And I feel that from that point onwards, he kind of adapted his style to try and make it more of the latter than the former. And one other thing from this, I think in retrospect, I kind of wish that Suzuki and Zack had won the tag team titles from Evil and Sanada at this point, because I think that would have really freshened things up in that division. But they didn't. And the division was pretty stale for most of the year. And then, of course, the new beginning in Osaka, 2 matches stood out there. Ishimori defending against Taguchi, where they were doing the sailor dancing thing, which I thought was a lot of fun. And it was also a really good match. And then Jay White winning his first IWGP title against Tanahashi in a match that I don't think was their best match. I thought the match that they had at the Best of the Super Juniors final was much better than this one. This wasn't a bad match, but I think some people were underwhelmed by it. But I think it's notable and worth talking about just for the fact that it was Jay White winning his first title in what I don't really feel was that much of a shock. I feel that from New Year Dash, from the closing angle of that, which was basically Jay White laying everybody out and standing proud in the middle of the ring, being like, you know, this is my place now. And like you said, the booking when the Kushida leaving angle, that just became all about Jay White, and he was pushed so strongly in the build-up to New Beginning that for me, I mean, I was on record on the J-Cast. I thought it was a formality that Jay White was going to win that title, and they did a really great job making him look like a main event big star. And
you said it right in Cork and Hall, Joe. I mean, we sat right next to each other, and you were like, he's getting the title. And you just didn't stop with, he's getting that guy's getting the title. They're putting the title on him. So, like, right from that angle on and the build, you were all over that. Yeah.
Now, I do want to say, you touched on the Jay White thing. Anyone who was a long-time Toryumon fan back in the day, just seeing a New Japan angle reference the Sailor Boys, which may be the biggest flop in Toryumon / Dragon Gate history, was really fucking funny. So I have to give a shout to Taguchi for that one. Joe, I'm sure you have many things you want to talk about with this tour, so go ahead.
Well, I mean, I had my Fantastica Mania hot takes ready. I was all ready to talk about. I was all ready to talk Sansone and Gran Guerrero here, but we could skip right to the beginning.
I forgot, honestly. I really did forget. I forgot about Fantastica Mania,
and I didn't have any hot takes either. So it was a fucking load of bullshit. But as far as New Beginning goes, yeah, I mean. I'm going to plug the 2019 New Japan Year in Review book that we've got coming out on January 2nd. And every year in that book, I write a little section at the end with the under-the-radar New Japan matches over the course of the year. There's so many great matches that I think a lot of stuff just gets lost in the shuffle and people forget about it. And my match of the tour was that Bushi and Shingo tag against Despy and Kanemaru. I love that fucking match. I think it was in Sapporo.
Yeah,
that to me, that was the match of the tour. And I don't know how many people actually watched those the USA shows, but I watched all three of them, and everybody worked hard. And I think New Japan did the best they can do, you know, putting Lifeblood and Lance Archer and the Dojo Boys and sneaking Okarn into the country and filling in the gaps with Shane Taylor and the indie guys and everything. And everybody worked hard, and the U.S. title match in, I want to say it was in, I forget what city it was in, but it was Juice Robinson and Beretta. Another excellent under the radar match. I know a lot of people probably skipped those three shows. They're all up on New Japan World, but if you watch anything off that tour, watch Robinson and Beretta, because I thought that was an excellent match too. And of course, watch all of Okarn's matches, because that guy rules. I'm a huge Okarn mark. I go out of my way, all the Rev Pro stuff, everything. I fucking love that guy. And I know he's not going to come back with that gimmick, and it's going to break my heart.
No question marks. No question marks over the face for Joe. I'm saddened.
So then after that, after New Beginning, you get into the Takashi Iizuka retirement show, which we don't have to spend a ton of time on, but I just wanted to mention it because the image of him like just fucking rampaging up into the sunset, up the Corkin steps is again one of those images that will stick with me a long time. It was the way they booked that. I mean, the balls to book that, to not give the happy ending, to not give the Tenzan reconciliation, and just to have him, he just bites Tenzan, he rampages away. All this time, I don't remember. I think Taichi is like just on Japanese commentary asking, does he even know he's retiring? Does he even understand? And it's just, and then obviously Taichi, picks up those iron gloves and takes them out of the ring after Iizuka left them. And that ends up getting paid off fucking 5 months later in the G1 when he uses them to beat Naito, which is just so, I think he never uses them after he takes them. He always shows them under his robe. And then 5 months later in the G1, he finally uses them. It's just such a great little story there. So I don't know if anyone else wants to rave about Iizuka.
I'll tell you what, I just like the fact that, and I don't mean this in a bad way, you don't see him or hear of him ever again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How many pro wrestling promotions would a month later, 2 months later, not that he was like this big cog in the wheel, but it would be very easy to dump him out somewhere in some fashion. And no, he is retired. He is no longer here. And whether he's chasing cows on a farm somewhere, who knows? But he's not in a New Japan Pro Wrestling building, which again, I appreciate that small little detail of living up to a step. That's fantastic.
How about Tenzan's year? right? His ankle's at a 90-degree angle. He gets shit on by Azuka. Tenkoji gets eliminated from the World Tag League like on day 7. I mean, this guy just had the shittiest year. I mean,
don't forget he lost in the first round of the Japan Cup to a junior heavyweight.
Yeah, lost to a junior. That's right. When they decide you're not being pushed anymore, I mean, they just put fucking dirt on the grave. I mean, it's just Nakanishi too. I mean, they finished last in the World Tag League and they lost to a team with a young lion.
Yeah.
So
and now they got a big match at Wrestle Kingdom.
Well, I mean, they basically shoehorned everyone on eventually. But yeah, I mean, Tenzan and Nakanishi, I mean, this was the year where they just flat out told you these guys are non-entities just beyond belief.
Yeah. I don't know, Joel, do you have any thoughts on Iizuka?
No, I think you guys summed it up quite nicely. But I do remember from that show the co-main event, which was Killer Elite Squad against Ospreay and Tanahashi. And I guess sort of looking back on this was the sort of dying, the last gasp for Killer Elite Squad. And I remember watching that thinking, fuck, these guys look really good. Davey Boy Smith Jr. in particular, he was all jacked up. He was like bright purple in the face, rampaging around the ring. I was like, man, this guy's fired up. These guys need to get a push. And then, about a month later, he's gone from the company. So that did stick out in my memory.
What was his last? Was that his last show? Oh no, he was on the New Japan Cup.
No, he was on the New Japan Cup. I think the Yano match might have been the last one.
I think he lost to Yano, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back because he was mad that he had to do a comedy match.
Right, he was tweeting out stuff. Yeah.
So I just looked it up.
He did a shoot interview too. I don't know if any of you saw that.
I did watch it actually. It was
where he just shit on Gato and he shit on Yano and he shit on the fact that he had to do that comedy match. And he's always been the kind of I don't want to get in trouble. He's a unique guy. Let me just put it that way. But there's an interview out there on YouTube where you can get the entire lowdown of why he quit, basically.
There's like a photo of him in like a Chinese like garb or something, and he captions it with like he's the most Asian white person, which I was like, I'm surprised they didn't get him more canceled, honestly. I guess nobody cared about Davey Boy Smith. But
what a missed opportunity having that Davey Boy Smith versus Kenny Omega match for the most Asian white man.
But yeah, his last date was March 24th. So he worked all the way through the New Japan Cup, and that was it for him, according to Cage Match anyway. Does anyone have any hot fucking takes on Honor Rising? Possibly the final Honor Rising ever, or can I move right past it?
Well, I mean, the Kingdom was certainly not over on those shows.
Have you ever seen anyone like fucking blow it more than them? I mean, I heard, this isn't really exactly inside information. New Japan fucking hated them. I mean, they thought they fucking sucked. And Korakuen Hall is one of the easiest fucking crowds in the world at this point, especially for New Japan. I mean, those people cheer anything, and they were like, they just would not react to them at all. Like they just had nothing for those people for the Kingdom. That was something.
You put that main event at the 2300 arena, or you put and you would get the same reaction. They did nothing to help themselves with that main event, and I think it was the second night, right? It was just, we talk all the time about, how Lance Archer, broken back, surgery, comes back, kind of spins his wheels a little bit, but then boom, now he's shot out of a cannon, and a guy who's, up in age, let's be honest, he's not a spring chicken. Taking advantage of opportunities that are given to him. I mean, that's a main event in a pretty historic building, and that was just so there, right? Just so, just not to steal a bag of socks for a match.
Yeah,
I mean the one that stands out to me as being terrible is the Jay Lethal TK Orion Ring of Honor World Title match, which might be the worst match in New Japan this year. But that was so fucking bad.
Yeah, and then you had the yearly Delirious and Cheeseburger shot at the never open weight 6-man titles with a new partner every year, but it seems like every year they get it. Well, not anymore because it's not on the schedule anymore.
Thank God. Can you believe that Ring of Honor left that weekend open because they thought there was still a chance New Japan was going to call them and say, let's get Honor Rising 2020 going? I'm like, guys, this is just fucking sad at this point. What are you doing?
Not after that Madison Square Garden show. If they were expecting a check, they're sadly mistaken after that.
I don't know. Anyone else? Anything else on Horizon before I move on? No? Okay.
Yeah, it led to the formation of the Colt Cabana Toruyano team.
That's true. That's a good point. I mean, Cabana's like the one guy, I guess, that came out of Honor Rising with like New Japan actually liking him because he turned it into like a regular gig. So good for him, I guess.
Yeah, he had the 6-man title shot. Who was?
Jonathan Gresham.
Oh yeah, Gresham. Yeah, he wrestled. He wrestled a tag match with Liger against Eagles and Ishimori before Eagles turned. And why do I remember this? I'm humiliated that I remember this stuff. Why do I remember these random Honor Rising matches? I think that it is time to move on because I'm humiliating myself.
But yeah, Gresham, at least I guess he did get on Best of Super Junior, so that's good. I mean, he was good.
That was maybe you remember that match because that was the flash pin from Liger. He did the Ground Cobra twist hold in about 5 minutes on Ishimori.
Oh yeah, that's the title match. So that's another transition. New Japan's 47th anniversary show on March 6th at Oda Ward. The Jay White and Ospreay, I'll let one of you talk about that because I'm quite sure that you liked that a lot more than I did. I thought it was fine, but not anything I'm going to remember that well. But 2 things I remember on this show. Number 1, Hiroki Goto declaring that he will win the New Japan Cup and saying I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was like, I'm going to win the New Japan Cup, and then getting eliminated in the first round of the New Japan Cup. I will definitely remember that for a long time. Number 2, Jushin Thunder Liger challenging Taichi Shimori for the junior heavyweight title, somehow having a 4 1/4 star match here in 2019, like an awesome fucking match, and then announcing his retirement right after. It's like, no, why would you do that? You can clearly still go, sir. Give us another 15 years of your life and body. But no, he did retire right after this. But awesome junior title match. Joel, I'm sure you're dying to tell me why Jay White and Ospreay was like the match of the year, so go ahead.
Yeah, I did love this match. It was in my top 10. And I think this is one of those matches that encapsulates the Jay White phenomenon where his matches are even better on a second watch because you start to notice little details that you didn't notice the first time. So the first time I watched this match, I thought, yeah, that was a really good match. Then I watched it back a second time and you notice all the smart little things that Jay White is doing to build the story of the match. And if I remember correctly, he was going after Will Ospreay's ribs in this match. And everything he did, every little move and transition was worked so smartly to target Will Ospreay's ribs, which paid into the finish of the match when I think he tried to, he was doing an Oz cutter and then he collapsed or something because of the damage that he received to his ribs, and Jay White was able to hit the Blade Runner and beat him. So again, I think Jay White, best wrestler on a rewatch.
Damon, you want to add something about the anniversary show or the main event or anything else on it?
No, I mean, again, I think the shock to me, as the resident Jushin Thunder Liger president of the fan club, it was the fact that, at that age, he got the tap on the shoulder this time, and which he does like every year. Like there's like one match a year in recent memory that he is able to just put on a match that you're like, holy shit. I mean, back, what was it, previous to this, Dontaku, Kushida, that match, this match here. And you're just like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're retiring now? I mean, we knew this day was going to happen, right? We knew this was going to happen. But you don't do that after putting on a performance like that. You put on, I mean, let's put it this way. As Joe so eloquently stated with Tenzan and the year that 2009 brought him, compare that to the year 2019 Liger gave to everybody. And yet he's going to ride off into the sunset. I don't know if that says a lot about the guy, where he's like, all right, I'm a step behind. And I always thought that if I was a step behind, that it was time for me to hang him up. But yeah, that obviously is going to be the lasting memory for me, is that unfortunately not even that show. It's, the day after that press conference and him announcing his retirement.
Joe?
And that's his last title match, right? He didn't have any random 6-man title matches or anything. I think that was it for him in terms of title matches.
That was it. Yep.
Went out on top, I guess. Did you have anything else you want to add about the show or anything, Joe?
No, I mean,
arguably
I liked
Ishimori's best match of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we sure about that? He didn't. Oh yeah, he got hurt in Super Junior, so he didn't have a very good tournament.
I really liked him and Dragon Lee, and I think Dontaku.
Yeah, I that's what I'm thinking too. What's the date on that?
May something.
First week of May, right? Yeah, it's gotta be like the first.
Yeah,
week.
May. I think it was May 3rd. I think it was night 1.
Yeah,
it was when they got to main event, which was awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes on that now, and it's bringing it back. Yeah, I like that one better as well, but I could easily see going either way.
Yeah. So that brings us over then to the New Japan Cup, which, as we mentioned earlier, I think was the greatest New Japan Cup of all time. They expanded it out from 16 to 32 for the first time ever. So you had 5 rounds instead of 4. There was so much great stuff in here. You could do like a whole podcast on just that alone. But I have to stay on brand here and say the Naito Ibushi match in round 1, March 10th, was a blow-away match. I thought it was their second best match of the 3. It seems like most people probably have it as third, but I thought this was fucking awesome. It's on my match of the year list, and just one of those matches where you're really, really hyped, and they somehow managed to completely deliver as far as, and then they still managed to leave enough also to keep coming back and referencing it all too in the next 2 matches. Like, here's Naito hits this amazing like sit out pile driver on the apron where he counters that swan dive German Ibushi does, and he just like flings him over his shoulder and just drops him like in one motion, one of the sickest spots of the year. And they reference that in the next 2 matches, and he keeps going for it. And each time Ibushi is just like ready this time. It's just such a great little story, and such building off that spot. So that's my big standout. And then the other big thing, Okada going through chaos, which was a really fun little story too, and culminating in an awesome match for Ishii. Joe, why don't we start you this time? What are your memories of the New Japan Cup?
Hey, remember when Mike Elgin was in New Japan? So there was an Elgin Okada match, I think first round, which I thought was really awesome. And Elgin had a rough go his last few months in New Japan, but I think went out on a high note with that one. Yuji Nagata had a really good match against Ishii in the first round too, that I'm not sure a lot of people remember. Chase Owens, Juice Robinson was a first round match that may have gotten lost in the shuffle too, that I thought deserved mentioning. And of course, I really think that it was the Lance Archer coming out party, the match he had against Will Ospreay, was really, and I know Davey Boy Smith was finishing up at that point, but really that was kind of the, wow, this guy can have a great singles match. And then we see what he did from there, having the second match against Will on the opening night of the G1 in Dallas. But I really love that first one too, where they did a lot of callback spots from the New Japan Cup match in the G1 match later in Dallas. So that's some of the, I think, under the radar, maybe lost in the shuffle kind of things that I remember from New Japan Cup.
I forgot to mention too the Taichi Ishii match in the second round, where Taichi, it starts a little story for him too, especially with Ishii, where like he has the microphone stand in his hand and he has the chance to use it. Ishii just looks at him defiantly and is like, "Come on, go ahead and hit me with it." And Taichi throws it down and gets back to fighting him, like a man, and they just beat the crap out of each other. It's just such an awesome moment, and it like keeps building to this story that eventually leads to Taichi actually beating Ishii clean at the G1. So I thought that was a great moment in his little character arc. Joel, do you have any other New Japan Cup thoughts?
Yeah, the Tomoaki Honma Taichi match, which I think you and I, John, were the only people on the planet that enjoyed it.
Everybody else thought we were insane.
I thought very underrated match.
Yeah.
And I guess the rise of Sanada, so a guy that Joe, I believe, correctly predicted 2019 being the year for the Sanada push. And I think this is the genesis here, where he went through Goto and Suzuki and Kabata and Tanahashi to make it all the way to the final. So I thought that was quite notable here. So to me, when I think back to the New Japan Cup 2019, even though he didn't win it, to me, it's the tournament of Sanada.
Yeah, I just rewatched the Tanahashi and the Okada matches, and I took a lot of hate on Twitter from some people for loving that Okada final as much as I did, but I stand by that. I thought it held up on rewatch for me at least. I thought it was a really fantastic match, Okada and Sonata. Maybe Okada's best of the entire year. So, Damon, you have any thoughts on the-
I went like 4.
Oh, everybody talking at once. What's that?
I was just going to say the Tanahashi Shota Umino match I thought was really good as well. And there was a near fall there where Umino rolled up Tanahashi and got like 2 3/4 and just absolutely popped the crowd. I thought that was great.
Joe, you're going to agree with me. So
I was just going to agree with you that Okada Sonata, I mean, of the 4 matches they had, I mean, that was, I'd put that one second. I think I went like 4.5 on it, so I agree with you there. I also want to quickly say before Damon goes that that sack of shit, Bad Luck Fale, was so bad in that first round match against Willow Spray that lump of fucking shit could not even get his own shoulders. He couldn't even keep his shoulders on the mat for the 3 count in that match. It was so hideously bad that I will never forget it. And it's just, I don't think we're ever going to see effort out of that guy again.
Yeah. Damon, do you have any New Japan Cup takes?
I mean, from a pure enjoyment standpoint, I don't think you can compare G1 and New Japan Cup. But one of the reasons why I do enjoy New Japan Cup sometimes a little bit more than I do the entirety of a G1 is I love the single elimination aspect of it. Right, that keeps you on your toes. That keeps you on the edge of your seat. And again, having guys like Chase Owens and having guys like Colt Cabana, they're not afraid to give you a first round upset to kind of rattle things up and change things up. So again, you might not always agree with the guy that they deliver the cup to at the end, but they have the guts to kind of shake things up, especially in first rounds, and get rid of guys that you would think that would move on pretty easily on paper. Boom, out in the first round, and you got some surprises in second, semifinals, and finals.
Yeah, for sure.
You predicted that, didn't you, David? I remember you going on Omakase earlier in the year.
Yes, you were the only you picked Chase over Juice, and we all laughed at you, I think. So,
that's correct. That is correct.
You did get it. You got us the last laugh on that one. Chase Owens fucking screenshotted, because I did the New Japan Cup preview on the site, and Chase Owens screenshotted me making fun of him and saying he was going to eat a fucking, oh god, what the hell does Juice call his goddamn finisher? Whatever the hell.
Friction.
Pulp Friction. Thank you. Substituting for Andrew Rich there, Joe Lanza. But yes, I said he was going to eat a Pulp Friction and get pinned, and he screenshotted my preview on Twitter and was like, "Haha, who's laughing now, geek?" It's like, well, I have to give you that one. You got me.
Yes.
He put out that bracket buster T-shirt too, which we should get a cut for that because that was like our fucking bracket he was busting.
I mean, listen, I should get a cut. I mean, I gave everybody the tip, and that's your tip for 2020, right? So look at that when they announce those people. Look at the people that are, maybe not having a great 2019, but you might project onto a 2020, getting a little bit more of a push, if you will. You're going to get a surprise in the first round. So there's your tip. There's your Damon tip for 2020.
Chase Owens has a history of that. He knocked Ricochet out of a Best of the Super Juniors on the last day with a package pile driver one time. He knocked Taguchi out of a Best of the Super Juniors like 2 years later on the final day with a package pile driver. And then he upsets Juice Robinson in the first round of this one. So he is a tournament spoiler, that Chase Owens.
Yep.
And they did a US title match on the last night instead of booking it at G1 Supercard because Juice had much more important things to do, which I guess we'll get into in a second here. But so G1 Supercard, that's the next thing. That's replaced Sakura Genesis, which is returning next year, by the way, if you didn't see that announcement on I think it's March 31st in Sumo Hall. This was the only show that all 4 of us were there in person for, so that's something. The G1 Supercard. I mean, I don't know what is left to be said about the Ring of Honor half of the show. Actually, Joe, why don't I let you go first here? You were like the only person that night who was kind of defending the Ring of Honor half a little bit. Not that you thought it was great or anything, but I remember you saying, a lot of it worked in your section where you were sitting and stuff. But now, with the benefit of hindsight and, you know, the massive cliff that Ring of Honor fell off after this show, have you reevaluate any of that?
I mean, I liked the show. I didn't really hate the Ring of Honor half. I think I'm the only person on the planet who did not hate the Ring of Honor half of the show. Did I love it? Of course not. There wasn't much to love. But I didn't hate it. And a lot of the stuff that people were complaining about in the building was over where I was sitting. I mean, I don't know. I can only go by what I saw. Like when Enzo and Cass came out, and granted, I was like right behind them. Okay. So it was kind of like all of the energy was right there in my section. People were into that, at least down there on the floor behind what was going on, because it was a shock and no one saw it coming. And it kind of hurt the Tanahashi match that followed, because people were still buzzing about the angle and wondering whether it was a shoot or whether it was a work. And I think because of that, it took a while for people to get into Zack Sabre Jr. and Tanahashi. And I really believe it hurt the energy of that match, because people were still buzzing about that dopey angle. But I didn't think the Ring of Honor half was nearly as bad as other people did. Obviously, most people disagree, because Ring of Honor's year obviously went directly into the shitter after that. But as a whole, I mean, I look at my notes. I have 6 matches from that show in my notebook. I mean, if I go to a wrestling show and there's 6 notebook matches, I can't complain about that show. That means I had a great time. And I left that building with a smile on my face. I left that building thinking that I saw a great show. I loved the main event. I know the main event is divisive, but I loved it. I mean, I went like 4 3/4 on it. I thought it was the perfect story for those two guys, and Okada standing tall in MSG at the end. And the Ring of Honor stuff was not nearly as intrusive to me or bad as it was to other people. So for me, it's one of my favorite shows of the year. It'll probably be finished, my top 3 shows of the year, which probably sounds insane to people.
I mean, the New Japan stuff was really awesome, and I was one of the people that didn't love the main event, and I even went back and rewatched it to see if I missed something, for if it was better on rewatch before I recorded this, and it didn't really get much better on rewatch for me. It still felt like a 3.5 star, good match, but not to that level. But Ibushi Naito again, I loved, and I thought was a fucking fantastic match. If not for one little botch with that like little power driver thing, it might have been, even better than the Dominion or the New Japan Cup match. Zack and Tanahashi was the one that gained the most for me when I watched it back, because what you just said about the buzz over the fucking Enzo and Cass angle ruining the start of that match was absolutely true. And even up in the 100 level, it was like people were just not into the start of that match. But rewatching it back, it really gains a lot when you just are able to watch it on tape. But yeah, the junior title 3-way was awesome. Cobb and Ospreay was awesome. The stuff that sucked for me was the New York City 6-man street fight, which, I couldn't believe that's what they had Juice Robinson doing on this show. It just seemed like a huge waste. And the fucking 3-way ladder match, which, apparently went 29:35, but in the building felt, you could have told me that was 29 hours and 35 minutes, and I would have believed you. Like that thing, I would have guessed like 45 minutes at least. It just went, that thing felt so endless. So, it was what it was, I guess. But I'm not a ladder match fan, so that's probably a huge part of it. But yeah, I could not stand that match. Damon, give me some G1 Supercard takes.
Yeah. So, we were all there. And for us, a lot of our talk going into that was how, unbelievable it was to have a promotion that, at least that, me getting tapes in the 80s and 90s, and the evolution of our fandom of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and now they're in the building that is notorious for being the mecca for any type of entertainment venue, the world's most famous arena, and now it's New Japan, and the building sold out, and everybody is hyped. And I thought that the show delivered big time, right? And especially from the New Japan perspective. When it came to the Enzo and the brawl, we were on the other side of the ring, and we had no idea. We thought it was a fight in the crowd, and we thought it was odd that there was a fight in the crowd, right? It just didn't seem like a crowd that would have anyone throwing punches at anything. You know what I mean? Like it had to be some ridiculous asshole in the crowd starting a fight, because it's just New Japan crowds to me just don't seem like a Guns N' Roses concert, right? And then it started the whispers. That's Enzo and Cass, and we were like, what? That's who? And yeah, you're right. I feel like that did take the steam out of it. The New York brawl, whatever you want to call it, with Juice and Bubba and all that. I mean, it wasn't for me. The ladder match, I enjoyed. I really did. I thought they all worked really hard. I thought they all busted their ass to make it entertaining. Plenty of car crash element. I didn't have a problem with that main event from the Ring of Honor perspective. I love the New Japan main event. I really did. I thought Okada and White was fantastic. I thought Ibushi and Naito was spectacular. I thought the junior title match 3-way was everything that you could have wanted from those three guys in the time that they got. So I think the New Japan section and the New Japan portion delivered. And I left that building just like Joe, with a huge smile on my face, with a home run. With they did what they had to do. I mean, even something small like having a battle royal and Jushin Liger in the ring with the Great Muta. And I know it's years past when it's and they're not the same people, and physically one can barely walk, and I know all this, but that was a moment, right? To me, that was a moment for a meaningless battle royal. No, I thought the show delivered, and I thought everyone there had a great time. In hindsight, the Ring of Honor stuff, you could have, what are you going to do? It happened. New Japan wasn't thrilled with it. We know that. New Japan was not pleased. And from our understanding was, they really had no idea that it was even happening. And think of it this way. You made social media stars out of Tonga Loa. So there you go. And Tama Tonga. So there you have it.
Now, I know you've been hinting a lot about Madison Square Garden on the Super J-Cast, Joel. So maybe, you've been dropping some hints.
Listen. I'll say is this: put on get a clean pair of shorts, some Vans, get some nice summer attire. I hear New York City is wonderful in the summertime, and no Rangers, no Knicks to compete with. I don't know. I think we could use a pastrami sandwich. Joel, how about you? You want a pastrami sandwich again? That sounds like a good time, right?
I say, you're burying the lead here. The biggest story is that the pastrami sandwich and the karaoke. Our Bond off.
Oh, I forgot
John
the karaoke.
Butcher and Taichi's theme.
Right.
I want to say, Joel, for the record, I just did Taichi's theme at karaoke last week. I have improved. So next time, I'll do it better for you. So there you go.
I need to start practicing because, Damon, I intend to go for round 2 in Tokyo next week.
Oh well, that's happening. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to eat pastrami, but we're going to be doing it right. That's for sure. But yeah, I think.
Well, if you all come to New York, we could do it again here too.
Well, I'm just saying, just leave your summer, leave your summer open. Leave your summer open a little bit. I know summer that stretches a long time, but leave the end of your summer open a little bit. Maybe we can all get together and have a very similar experience.
Yeah.
I take offense to you calling that Battle Royal meaningless because, excuse me, sir, for Kenny, K-I-N-G, King, he earned himself a Ring of Honor World title shot by winning that Honor Rumble, sir.
Did it become a 3-way somehow?
Yeah.
That's immaterial to the point here. The point here is that was not a meaningless match. And I got to tell you, I love that finish because I like when heels are trolls and do shit like that and ruin a moment. And I like that because there was no reason for Jushin Liger or Muta to win that thing. And for, this troll to hide under the ring and throw them both over the top rope. I know a lot of people were annoyed by that. I wasn't annoyed by that. I mean, come on. These guys are 55 years old. It does not matter. So I enjoyed the finish of that Honor Rumble.
I wanted to point out too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Damon.
The only thing I was going to say is that I think a lot of people in that building were kind of feeding off of, Liger's last performance. There really wasn't anything announced. You figured there would be more, U.S. dates, but nothing was concrete at that point. Madison Square Garden. Let's have that happy moment because, us Western fans were so conditioned that you had to be spoon-fed that. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody was kind of looking for that happy moment. Jushin Liger announcing his retirement, Madison Square Garden, blah blah blah. But no, you're right. From a promotional standpoint, yes, KING was the king of the mountain. Pardon the pun.
Now, if we're all in the same city again, I think we have to make it a goal to get Joe Lanza to come to karaoke with us next time.
Yeah, not a chance. That's
No,
It's Joe. It's box karaoke, so you don't have to humiliate yourself in front of strangers, just in front of us.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't know.
I know. You're not tempting me. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I'd also like to remind you though that King Haku was in that battle royal. You may have forgotten that.
Oh yeah.
how could I forget? He's in every battle.
Before I forget to tell the story, so this is not a Ring of Honor podcast, obviously. Thank God. But Matt Taven wins that 3-way ladder match, and I think I told this story once before. But the people in my section, these fucking elite fans that were there, who bought their tickets before AEW, who were there and they really, they loved Marty Scurll, obviously, and they were so behind this man. And when Matt Taven pulls out this purple ladder, pulls down this title, this fucking guy, yanks his child so hard that I thought I was witnessing an act of child abuse, and he throws up his middle finger with his other hand, and he practically drags this poor child up the fucking steps with the middle finger up the entire way. And I'm like, that is one angry fucking fan. And I really thought he stormed out and was not coming back, but turned out they just had to piss or something, and they did come back during Okada and White. But yeah, I'll never forget this man who's so angry he almost pulled his child's arm out of his socket.
Classy parenting.
Classy parenting. The middle finger up the entire way.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately for me, I was sitting in the Madison Square Taven section with all of the hardcore Taven fans. So to me, that match had a ton of heat, and everyone around me popped at the finish, and it was like a party. I was in the middle of a Matt Taven party. There was purple everywhere. There were women squealing. It was unbelievable. So that I had a totally different impression of that match than some people sitting in other parts of the building did, because I was in the Taven section where they were holding up a banner that literally said Madison Square Taven. So there was confetti guns going off and people yelling and screaming. And to me, my perspective was, wow, this match is over as fuck. Then I get on Twitter and everybody's complaining. So I was in the one corner of the universe where people wanted Taven to win that match, where the other 98% of the world wanted Marty Scurll to win the match, which obviously would have been the right decision, in hindsight.
Yeah, it's something.
Joe, I don't think you were with Matt Taven fans. I think you were at a Prince concert, from what you described.
It was similar. I mean, these people. No, I don't know if you've ever encountered the Madison Square Taven corner of the unit, but these people are fanatical Matt Taven fans. There aren't many of them. There's 24 of them on the planet, but they love that man. It's I don't know what it is, but he does have super ardent fans, and I think that the Ring of Honor bookers or whatever just got wrapped up in that, and they extrapolated it and thought that he was way more popular than he really was, based on these very super vocal fans that travel the country and go to Ring of Honor shows and are just wild for Matt Taven. But now I would hope that they realize that it's just a small group of people,
right?
Based on what immediately happened when they put the title on this man, where everyone just stopped going to shows, full stop, because this guy was on top. And they stuck with that mistake for months and months and months. It's just baffling. But this is not a Ring of Honor year review.
It was 6 months. It was
yeah.
It was 6 months, I think, right? Wasn't it? They kept the Ring of Honor World title?
Yeah.
I turned into a random Ring of Honor show. I tuned into a random Ring of Honor show when he was in a 4-way non-title elimination match, and they still had him get the pin in that, to win the fucking thing. And meanwhile, they're in front of 100 people. It looked in Nashville or whatever. It's you guys still are not giving up on this Matt Taven push, apparently.
No.
But Yeah, like you said, not Ring of Honor year interview, but man, what a disaster that was. Dontaku tour, that's the next thing. This was a weird one because on one hand, they were doing the thing where they tried to do 10 million shows on this tour. They actually added another one with Sengoku Lord in Nagoya during the tour. And, on the one hand, it results in like undercard matches, that really do not matter. And, these shows, just will be filled with undercard matches that are not important at all. But then on the other hand, you get like, the junior heavyweight tag team titles get to headline a show. The Road to Wrestling Dontaku, Aki no Sengoku Emaki. And like they get like 25 minutes to do a junior heavyweight tag title match in Hiroshima. And like Roppongi 3K and Bushi and Shingo, they have you raved about their other one, I think. Or no, that was Bushi and Shingo against Despy and Kanemaru. But this match is fucking awesome. It's like a 4.5-star match. And obviously they ain't getting 25 minutes on a lot of other shows. So that's the good part of, having a million big shows. The problem is also, though, that like you get like main events like Hino Kuni, which had that Jay White versus Goto match. That was, it was good, but I don't think it was like up to that level. But yeah, I mean, like it is weird that they're like cutting back on it. If you haven't seen the tour that just came out, like, Sengoku Lord is gone. Aki no Sengoku Emaki is gone. Hino Kuni is gone. I mean, the tour is just Road to Dontaku's and then Wrestling Dontaku nights 1 and 2. So I don't know if that's because they're going to be doing so many American shows. They don't think they don't have enough matches, or but you think that's it, Damon?
Yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon how you look at it. Let's look. I mean, I know I've hinted at it 500,000 times on the show, but that U.S. schedule. I mean, they're doing exactly what they said they were running to do with that silly map at that press conference, and hitting all those different territories. They're going to be a touring company in the United States. So something had to give way, right? So Texas, I would think would be one of those areas that might have a tour. I mean, we just saw the New Beginning tour that was announced. This New Japan will be a touring company in the United States, and I think wherever you're listening to this, if you live in the United States, feel confident that you'll see a show in 2020 that's well within your driving distance of a major city.
Yeah, I love that one of the regions on the map was Texas.
Right.
That's
right.
Exactly what I want to hear. They're like Southeast United States, Western United States, Texas.
Right.
Fuck it. I'll go to all of them. I don't care what's on them. You can give me Tracer X and fucking Great Okarn again, and I'm going to go. Why not?
Yeah. I think you'll see, your 2,000, 3,000 seaters. You'll see certain stops where they'll try and shoot for something maybe a little bit bigger. I wouldn't say too much, but even sprinkle it in there, you might see a big show, a bigger show. I worry about this a little bit. And again, you kind of look at what these New Beginning shows are all about so far. And again, they're in a tough spot. They're not announcing lineups. You don't know the talent. You're going just because it's New Japan Pro Wrestling. In markets that really haven't been proven successful. You're hoping that you're going to have people that they can draw from the surrounding area. But I think Texas themselves will be firmly and soundly represented, Joe. You'll have a couple shows you'll be able to attend in the summer.
I think the buildings are small enough to where, look, some of these shows are going to bomb. I have no question about that. I think some of these shows are going to bomb. But the buildings are small enough that they're going to sell out a ton of them, too. There's going to be people jacked up. The kind of people who aren't willing to hop on an airplane to go to a G1 or go out to California for one of those shows. Oh, New Japan's finally where I can drive to a show. I mean, they're going to draw that type of fan. And I do think the lineups are going to be a little better than people are thinking they're going to be. Because I think they're taking this seriously, and I think that they're serious about filling these buildings. But yeah, as far as this funny little tour that we're talking about now, one little thing that maybe people forgot, I was very surprised. I really thought that Togi Makabe and Toru Yano would win the tag team titles on this tour. Because remember, they got that title shot against Guerrillas of Destiny. And they made a big deal out of Most Violent Players coming back together this year. And then they lost that match and didn't do jack shit. Like I know they held the 6-man titles all year.
Yeah, a little respect there, Joe, please, for the never 6-man belts. I mean,
Yeah, then I mean, they literally held them all year because they never defend them unless Cheeseburger's in town. But I mean, I really thought that team was poised to have a big year because they really are never going to do anything with Makabe as a single again. Same for Yano. So I figured it was a perfect opportunity to put those guys together and give them a little bit of a tag team run this year with the titles. But they lost that match on whatever show that was. It might have been Hino Kuni or whatever. Like John said, there's like that tour, like every 4 days, you're like, oh yeah, there's a New Japan pay-per-view again. Like it's like it was almost too much. And you had matches like Bad Luck Fale versus Mikey Nichols. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like,
I want to say for the record, Joe, your knowledge of 2019 New Japan trivia comes through again because it was indeed Hino Kuni.
Yeah, so so that was the one thing I remember. Like that was it for Most Violent Players and any semblance of push they were going to get. And then probably like 3 days later, there was another pay-per-view that I remember nothing about. So, the best things on that tour were probably, I think someone mentioned already, the Roppongi 3K versus Shingo and Bushi match, which kicked ass on one of those shows. And then, that's really the only thing. There was a really good singles match on one of them, but I can't remember. Someone help me out here.
Now, Joe, the tag title match was on Aki no Sengoku Emaki, if you'd like to repeat that back for me.
If you say so, and I will not be repeating that back for you.
I probably didn't even say it correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was the singles match you're thinking of?
I can't remember. It wasn't Cobb and what? It was not Cobb. It wasn't White
Cobb and Taichi. Cobb and Taichi?
Who did White wrestle? Oh,
there were two really good ones on Sengoku Lords. The top two matches I thought were really good. There was Juice defending the US title against Fale, which I thought was good considering how terrible Fale had been in the New Japan Cup. And the main event was Ibushi versus Zack. So Ibushi was defending the IC title, which I thought was a tremendous match. And I got to be careful here when I'm talking about Zack because I might get some very angry Brit Rest people. I thought that was one of Zack's best matches of the year. But
that's the match.
Ibushi
that was it.
One of Zack's best opponents. But this tour was strange. It was like if you put all these individual matches together on one show, it would have been an amazing show. So you got Juice Fale was good. Ibushi Zack was tremendous. The Roppongi 3K versus Shingo and Bushi, that was probably Roppongi 3K's best match of the year. Goto versus Jay White, I thought that was decent. Again, you got that tag match called as a Destiny against Most Violent Players. I enjoyed Taichi versus Cobb. No short amount due to the fact that Taichi won the Never Openweight title back. And Dragon Lee versus Ishimori, that got 25 minutes in the main event of Dontaku Night 1 on the Friday, and I thought that was outstanding. And then Night 2, top two matches there were Ishii against Sanada. Evil and then Okada Sanada.
Yeah, Okada Sanada, I will say.
Yeah, Okada Sanada, 58 minutes.
Maybe the most disappointing thing for me in New Japan's year because I absolutely loved the New Japan Cup final, as we just talked about repeatedly. And this Dontaku title match, I just thought was there. Like, I thought they didn't even... It felt... It was so far below that New Japan Cup final, it felt like they weren't even really trying to live up to it. So I don't know what happened there. It just didn't work. I mean, they would go on to have two more great matches, I think. And the G1 one, which I don't think that's even controversial at all. I think most people think that was awesome. And the King of Pro Wrestling one I liked. But... I think I liked more than some people, but the Dontaku one, I cannot defend that one, even as a card-carrying Sonata defender. I did not think the Dontaku title match was very good. The other one I wanted to touch on, too, that you mentioned in these 10,000 matches, we did mention, actually, why did Mikey Nichols have another match with Chase Owens and Sengoku Lord? It was like, this was like the Mikey Nichols series. He had like so many random singles matches. Very strange.
They had another Juice Robinson Chase Owens match on that tour too, because I think they had a title match coming off of the New Japan Cup upset, and then they had another match. I just think it's because they had like 5 like C-level pay-per-view shows, and they just had to put shit on them. Because it's just that's the rub when the company is growing, right? They'd rather draw 5 houses of 3,000 fans each than draw one big house of 6,000 fans at the end. Do you see what I mean? So it's like they split it up. It's kind of what happened years ago when they split up New Beginning and they split up Destruction. It's more advantageous for them from a business perspective to draw additional houses, even though it's worse from a fan experience if you're going to watch all of these things, because now all of the big matches are spread all over the place, like Joel said.
Yeah. Anything else on Dontaku before we move on?
God, no.
Okay. Best of the Super Juniors. So again, we talked about earlier, it was a really good tour. I think this is where I should cede the floor to somebody who thinks Will Ospreay had the greatest year in human history. Not that I didn't think Will Ospreay was good, because people have this saying where if you say anything other than he was the greatest of all time this year, you think he was bad. I mean, I thought he was really good in some of these matches too, but I think some of you probably liked his tour here more than I've ever liked anything. So I don't know, Joe, what do you think of? I'm sure this was I will say the Shingo run that I thought was actually one of the greatest runs I've ever seen. I thought the undefeated 9-0 thing. I was living and dying with that Shingo run, and he has that match with Kanemaru where Kanemaru's putting him leg first through a table, and he's doing anything to just win by a count out to try to end the undefeated streak. That was my shit. I loved all that Shingo stuff, but Joe, give me the Ospreay Best of Super Juniors pitch or whatever else you want to say about this one.
Kanemaru was so fucking good in that match. I'm so glad you brought that match up. And yeah, I think Will Ospreay, obviously, I did audio behind the paywall every night of the tour. I gave every single match he had on this in this tournament 4 stars plus. I thought it was a legendary. And Shingo, too, both of them in the same tournament had legendary tournaments. The Shingo story was better, right? Because he's going undefeated and he's finding a way to pull out these matches. And it's not like these hokey, come from behind, unrealistic wins. He's just a monster who cannot be put down, right? And he survived a lot of shit, but it was within the realm of believability. You can suspend your disbelief that this was, it wasn't hokey pro wrestling nonsense where he's coming back from insurmountable odds. He's just too tough to put down. And, he hits that Last of the Dragon on these geeks one after another and puts them away until he has the Will Ospreay match. And then they have that, match of the year match it's just, God, this tournament fucking ruled. This was the best Super Junior ever with the 2 best Super Junior runs ever in the same tournament, culminating with these 2 guys having a match. And it's and everything, and everything else, the Rocky Romero match against ELP, and there's just so much more too that I'll let everybody else talk about because I don't want to hog it up. But yeah, Will was just out of this world great, and when you combine his G1 with that and his New Japan Cup with that, it's just, my God, but this was just the peak. And he even went out there and had a great match with fucking Daukai or whatever the fuck that guy's name is.
Doki.
Yeah,
Doki.
It's just an incredible tournament. I mean, to me, the best ever. And the Shingo stuff in one block, the Will stuff in the other. I can't say enough. But I will give up the floor to everybody else.
Joe, do you want to add some takes here? How about the Doki? Doki was great.
Yeah, I was one of the original Doki defenders because I think his own first match was against Ren Narita. So obviously good opponent to start with, but I thought he acquitted himself very well there. He was a last-minute replacement, sleazy Lucha Indies heel guy. So the expectations weren't that high, but I thought he did absolutely fine. And the fact that they've kept him around, I think, is testament to that. But on the Ospreay thing, I'm just looking at Cage Match here to see how some of these matches were rated, and we've got the observer ratings as well. I mean, say what you will about Meltzer, but this is just an indicator of how highly some people thought of this run. So the Rocky match, 4.5, El Phantasmo match, 4 3/4, Bandito, 5 stars, Narita, 4 1/4, Eagles, 4 1/4, Doki, 4 1/4, Taguchi, 4.5, and then the final 5 3/4 Meltzer gave that. So I think one of the things that stood out here with Ospreay is that he was determined to make everyone he wrestled against looked good. There wasn't anyone he went out against and was like, no, sorry, I'm a bigger star than you. I'm going to blow you away, which, you would have been within your right going against someone like Doki or Ren Narita to think, no, I should win this one in 5 minutes. But he didn't do that. So I think one of the things that I'll give Ospreay credit for is that everyone he goes in there with, he's determined to put on the best match that they can possibly have. And other matches that I really enjoyed, I thought Shingo against Dragon Lee was outstanding. That's one that a lot of people have forgotten. I thought Dragon Lee had a low-key, really, really good tournament here. And also Sho versus Kanemaru, which had that amazing count-out moment where Sho's desperately trying to run back to the ring to make it in time for the 20. And I think Kanemaru threw one of the young lions into Sho. So they both tumbled over and then he couldn't get back in the ring in time. So that was really good stuff too.
Two things. First of all, none of us mentioned Sho and Shingo, which seems like an oversight. That match was fucking awesome. And I will say, like those Will Ospreay matches, a lot of my favorite ones were like the off the beaten path ones. Like I will remember that Ospreay and Doki match for a long fucking time, probably because it was just such a bizarre like visual, like Will Ospreay in here with this like ninja mask wearing, kind of chubby, weird gear, lead pipe man, and like they went out there and had an awesome fucking match. So I do have to give Will credit for that one. That was really good. And Doki held up his head to the bargain too. So he could have, Will could. Bad Luck Fale didn't have a good match with Will, but Doki did. So give Doki his credit for that. But yeah, Joel, I'm sure match. Joe. Oh, sorry, Joe.
The other one too I wanted to mention was the Will match against Robbie Eagles, because that continued the 2-year-long story they were telling and also planted the seeds for the Robbie Eagles face turn, which happened on the Australia tour, a month or two or whatever it was after this. So there was even sort of a story match thrown in there. It wasn't just a straight up, work rate fucking bonanza like all of Will's other matches were. He went in there with Robbie Eagles and they continued a 2-year-long story that they had been telling. And where Robbie, he didn't want to take the pin because he knew Fanta had interfered in the match and he begrudgingly, covered him. And obviously that set the stage for what would occur in Australia a month later.
Damon, you haven't gotten a chance to get in here yet. What's your best of Super Junior thoughts?
Two things. One, and again, Joe was kind of taking the conversation, and I thought he was going to go there. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at what was arguably, and some people may disagree, but it's in the mix, Shingo and Ospreay being match of the year on the finals. And then you had matches like, Dragon Lee and Ishimori, or excuse me, not Dragon Lee Ishimori. I just lost the train of thought. Dragon Lee and Shingo, right? And just, Ospreay and Bandito, right? Just matches like that again, just kind of, you just forget just because of all the other stuff that was just such higher tiered pro wrestling that even the really good stuff kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Every year we talk about Wrestler of the Year, like right around this time. In the calendar year, right? And everybody was already in years past. You would talk about Ricochet, and you would talk about Ibushi. Getting to this point, everything before G1, and now you have Will Ospreay, where everybody's kind of talking. Oh, he's a front runner. He's for Wrestler of the Year, and he's going to be in that mix. But everybody was kind of like, okay, well, but we still got G1 to go, and that's really going to be the thing that pushes somebody over the top. And G1's really going to be the barometer of who's going to win this and match of the year and all that stuff. So Will goes out, has arguably one of the best of the Super Juniors of any person at any time, right? Culminating in a match that Joe described of two guys that were at the peak, top of their groups meeting in this main event. And then after that, we find out G1's right around the corner for Will Ospreay, right? So even before G1, Will Ospreay is your Wrestler of the Year in ring to me, right? And I think that this tournament just solidified that. I don't even think he needed his G1. His G1 helped just put icing on a very delicious cake that was already being set right after Best of the Super Juniors. And I don't know if you could say that about those previous guys that we talked about, like Ricochets, like Ibushis, in previous years that were leading up to the summer. Let's pause. Let's wait until G1. I really feel like even after this tournament, Will Ospreay was Wrestler of the Year.
And I want to give a special shout out to the final night, which we talked about the final match, obviously, which was outstanding. But so I started planning a trip for Japan before they had announced that this was going to be at Sumo Hall. So I felt like I made out kind of like a bandit here, where we ended up getting to go to Dominion and this 4 days beforehand, and it felt like we almost got like another mini big show. And I actually like this show, I think, overall more than Dominion, because you have that amazing main event. You have Jay White and Tanahashi, which I think Joel mentioned before was, a better match than their the title change. I thought that was an awesome Jay White Tanahashi match. You had like a bunch of like fun little tag stuff, including Okada and Rocky Romero against Brody King and Marty Scurll, which I remember being like oddly fun, just seeing like Okada in there with Brody King, which is not a matchup I ever thought we'd see. And then you had Jon Moxley beating Juice Robinson for the U.S. title, which is crazy to think about now, but like this was his first match after leaving WWE. Like this was the match that like he talked about himself, I think, like a month or two later, where he went out there and finally like realized that he gets in the ring and he starts doing a bunch of moves, and he's like, I think the exact way he put it was like, I got out there, I started the match, and I realized it was finally just me. He's like, there's no one else in the ring with me. And what he meant was like he didn't have, Vince McMahon or the agent or whoever the fuck like barking orders through the referee. He was just finally able to have a match. And like Jon Moxley as Dean Ambrose, I don't know if I've seen him have a match that I really liked and like, since like the end of the Shield. I really can't think of anything that stands out. So watching him come here and just have this fucking barn burner with Juice and like, tear the house down and, to be in the building and see people go nuts and just see him, have that kind of performance. It's like, how many people on that roster in WWE like have this in them? It's probably like more than half that could come out tomorrow and do this. So it is really, that was really something. Again, something that will stick with me. Just seeing Jon Moxley come into that ring and just fucking have that barn burner with Juice, and to watch this guy that I thought nothing of for like the last like 3 or 4 years of his WWE run, to watch him do that was pretty amazing. But I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on the Super Junior finals.
Well, the best part about
the Mox.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Joe. I was just going to say the Mox thing was just a very pleasant surprise, and I know that there were many Chris Brooks fans that were upset that it wasn't him. But
he's been great in DDT, by the way. Yeah. He's been really good.
Yeah, but yeah, I just remember that banter going back and forth of, wow, Chris Brooks, and then, oh, it's Moxley. Okay.
Yeah, the Moxley thing was one of the defining moments of the year in all of pro wrestling. Like you said, his first match outside of that system, and he knocked it out of the park and did a great job. So, just a great tournament and a great final.
Yeah. 4 days later, you have Dominion, which is, it's a weird one to revisit again. And this is again talking about the New Japan, high standard. I mean, this has my New Japan match of the year, or my second place, Naito and Ibushi for the IC title, which I thought was, I'm definitely on the side of 5-star match. I don't have any problem with the violence or whatever. That is a match that I absolutely adore. And again, I just rewatched it and it totally held up for me. But it also has Ospreay and Dragon Lee for the junior title, which is awesome. Ishii and Taichi for the Never title, which ruled. That Shingo Kojima 11-minute match that was so fucking good. The beginning of that Moxie Umino angle. The problem is the main event. It just really wasn't up to the standard of a Dominion main event. It just, it was just kind of a nothing match and dragged on way too long with Okada and Jericho. And then the crowd really in the building, again, being there, they really hated that post-match angle. I mean, Joe, you can talk about it too. They were really mad. They did not get their, their Okada speech. It just becomes such a, an expected part of the New Japan experience. You see Okada and IWGP title match, you see him retain the title. You expect him to go up there and be like, Mitsu, which is like, I have 3 things. And he just didn't do it. So obviously with the Jericho thing. So yeah, they really did not like that. And it was the kind of negative reaction you really do not ever get at New Japan shows. So being there for that in the building for that moment was really something. But Joe, I know you were there as well. So go ahead. Do you disagree with me on any of this? Oh, the Kenta thing too. That was amazing too to be there for. But Joel, anything?
Yeah, if you chopped off the main event, then this is a candidate for show of the year. But just having that tacked on the end of it. And I remember being there, I was sitting with WH Park and Jojo Remy, and we were just talking all the way through that main event. There was nothing about that main event which grabbed our attention. And, excuse me, just the way that it finished with, it was a roll-up or a flash pin, if I remember correctly. So it wasn't like it was a conclusive finish. And then you had them setting up the Jericho Tanahashi stuff. So it was very unsatisfying. We didn't get the big moment with the Rainmaker 1, 2, 3 and the speech and all that at the end. But aside from that, really good show. We had the genesis of the Moxley show to Umino thing, which is even paying dividends at Christmas with John Moxley sending Shota one of his Death Rider jackets. So I'm sure we'll see that one going along into the future. You talked about Kojima against Shingo already. And we had the Suzuki Liger feud going full throttle here with that tag match together with Yoshihashi and Zack involved. And the Ishii Taichi, so they're their rematch here. And this was notable for the Super J-Cast because this was, I nearly had to shave my head with this one because the Cartwheel Death match went into overdrive here. And finally, I managed to wring a acknowledgement of a 4-star performance out of Taichi. So that one was really good too. The tag match with GOD against Evil and Sonata was notable for the photo of the queues for the toilets at Osaka-jo Hall that I tweeted out going viral. And it just speaks to how weak and uncompetitive the heavyweight tag division was that year.
Oh, this is where I threw a bottle.
Lee versus Ospreay. That was my favorite match.
This is where I threw a bottle at Harold Mays too, or Harold May. Did I tell you that story? So no. I'm walking. I was like on the floor, right, like right off the floor. So to go to the bathroom, I guess I passed the door that Harold was standing right next to, and I go to throw my like plastic Coke bottle away as I'm going to the bathroom, and I throw it I'm just throwing it in the can, and I'm pretty far away, but I'm like, oh, I almost forgot. I throw it in there. And my buddy Quinlan goes, do you see who you just almost threw that bottle at? I'm like, no, what did I look back, and Harold is standing there and still looks a little like disheveled that this foreigner almost threw a bottle right in his face. And Quinlan's like, yeah, he jumped backwards. Like he thought you were going to hit him with this bottle. But no, I was a good shot. I got it right in the garbage can.
Hey, John, don't try and steal our Michael Craven.
I'm sure he doesn't know who I am. I almost threw the bottle right in his face. It was something. But yeah, Damon, go ahead. What are your Dominion thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of looking through. I have our year-end awards up, and I kind of look through matches of the year, and I like it when people kind of jog my memory. I drink a lot, so I don't remember things that well. So I'm glad I have everyone here remembering these things because sometimes it takes me a little bit to be like, oh yeah, that was pretty great. No, but I will say this. So if you go through our match of the year as voted on by the listeners of the Super J-Cast, it's best of the Super Junior Finals and Wrestle Kingdom, and then tons of G1 matches. And then there's that Naito Ibushi Dominion match that sits comfortably in the top 10. So yeah, to me, that's the one match that I would take away from that show, 100%. And the memory that I would take away from that show would be Naito and Ibushi.
Joe, anything to add?
Can we talk about that spot from the match? Sure. Suplex thing.
I've screamed about it on this podcast so many times because it so pissed me the fuck off how much shit they got for that spot when, again, Ospreay and fucking Skrull botched an apron spot in almost the exact same way, and I do not remember, with like Ospreay hitting his head on the fucking apron. I do not remember a single person being like, "Oh, I refuse to rate this match. This match is too dangerous to rate." It for some reason that like comparison like really pissed me off. It's like it felt like we were picking on the Japanese for doing the super dangerous shit that apparently we're fine with letting the white people get away with. It was really really angry. But I mean, look, clearly they were not trying to do that. Clearly, Naito was trying to German suplex Ibushi off the apron, and Ibushi was supposed to land on the fucking mat. Would that have still been on the apron on the padding on the floor? Would that still have been very dangerous? Of course it would have been. But it's one of those botches that, like, especially since Kota was fine, by all accounts, it's one of those botches that adds to the match because you look like you just witnessed a murder. And they continue on with the match and keep doing all this crazy shit. I mean, if you watch it back, I mean, even Kevin Kelly and Don Callis, they sell it like they just saw a man die. And I'm sure they thought they did it first, but as it keeps going and as it's clear that they're fine, they're doing all these spots and like still doing them flawlessly. I mean, at that point, they're probably they're just selling it, and they do a great job, calling it and like setting up. They're just like, they're watching these people kill each other right after, Kota could already be dead. But yeah, it will stay with me forever because of that. But like, I don't know, the fucking fading couch people. I ain't got no time for you, especially if you're not gonna hold everybody equally accountable. It just felt like the Naito Ibushi, because it's a series and because they always land on their necks and stuff, it became like a cause celeb for people. And I'm just like, okay, I don't care what you write in Paste magazine. They're not gonna change their fucking spots because of it. So might as well stop. But Joe, do you have anything you want to?
Well said. Yeah, I mean, I don't care what these people do to their bodies. I mean, everyone has their personal line. This didn't cross mine. I mean, nobody got hurt. A lot of it is concern trolling. Not all of it, but a lot of it is. But I've given my take on wrestlers doing dangerous things for years, and I will stay consistent with it. It's their bodies. It's up to them. Do I think they're fucking idiots? I do. But does it entertain me? It does. I'm not ashamed of that. It doesn't embarrass me. And, being a pro wrestling fan, I know that the odds are very good that I'm going to see something else tragic, at some point, before the end of my life. Probably multiple things that are tragic. This probably came perilously close to being something tragic. This is a dangerous activity, and it is what it is. And, it's, I don't know. I really don't want to say much more about it because all these months on, I really don't care. I mean, no one got hurt. Nobody got hurt, and it looked cool. What do you want me to say? I mean, it added to the match, and it looked cool, and I did fucking rate it. And, I rated it very high, and that spot was part of the reason I rated it high. So if I'm a monster, I'm a monster. Whatever.
I heard after the fact, Kota was, like, angry. Like, Kota Ibushi was, like, fucking mad that people were, like... He's like, I know what I'm doing. Like, that was basically his reaction. And, like, he was fucking angry that people were, shitting on the match for being too dangerous or whatever. Like, he was, like, actually mad. And I totally get it from his perspective. He's like, look, I'm not dead. I'm totally fine. Maybe my head hurts, but, like, my head hurts a lot in a lot of matches that don't feature my brain hitting the side of the apron. And I just went out there and killed, and I feel like I killed it, and then I had to come back and read people being like, oh, they have to stop. Like, I would be mad, too, if I was him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I liked it. I thought it looked cool and dangerous, and no one got hurt, so I'm okay with it. So, I don't know. Fucking cancel me again. I've been canceled so many times. It doesn't matter at this point. But the other thing I'll say quickly is I will be the defender of the main event. I loved it. Okay. And maybe I'm just... See, the Jericho thing, I don't know. I still haven't figured out if my Jericho love is ironic or not, but I really don't care. I enjoy the fuck out of everything Chris Jericho does. And yeah, the sit-down finish that Joel had referred to, that was a callback. That was a callback from one of the Okada finishes with Omega. So they kind of worked that into this one. And I, as an intellectual wrestling fan, recognized that callback. And it added to the match for me, where I could see where it came off flat to others. She's like, what the fuck is this? I want my Rainmaker. But I saw what they were doing there. I recognize it didn't work for the live crowd. I recognize that I'm sort of on an island. I'm on an island with Dave Meltzer on this one, because I think he liked the match too. But we're the only two people who did, I think. But yeah, I will defend the main event because I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. If you liked it, you liked it. But it wasn't... It was like the people in the building sure did not like it. So
I think Chris Jericho. Here's the thing: Chris Jericho took Okada out of his comfort zone and made him do something else. And so I think that was a positive too. But I accept the fact that everyone thinks I'm an idiot. But I like the match. I don't know. I got to be honest. I got to be true to myself, John.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, I think about that all the time with some people that people really love. So. The other main moment none of us touched on was Kenta coming out, which in the building when Shibata brought Kenta out, that was like I don't know. You'd think Jesus is like descended from the heavens. Like the people next to me were like screaming as loud as I've ever heard people scream. So that's what made it all the more bizarre when they so quickly turned on him when the G1 started, because there was no fucking sign of that in this building. I mean, the people were going crazy. So when he was really turned on him
so long.
I'm sorry.
Shibata was pointing for ages. He was pointing at that entranceway for about 5 minutes before Kenta finally turned up. So that was them sowing the seeds that Kenta was eventually going to fuck him.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Was the reaction like that where you were sitting too? Because where I was sitting, you'd think the fucking Beals came out. Like they loved Kenta. So I don't know, Joel. What was it?
It was the same. It was a huge moment. Yeah. And that's, I guess, one of the things that stands out from Dominion. These little moments that weren't necessarily in the matches. John Moxley declared himself in the G1 when he said he was greetings from Ohio, and then the Japanese crowd thought he was saying Ohio, like Ohio gozaimasu, and they went Ohio. And then Shingo declared he's in the G1, and then this Kenta Shibata thing. So there was a lot of notable out of the ring stuff as well. That was very memorable.
Yeah. But yeah, so then they very quickly turned on him. Someone told me, I don't remember who it was. It may have been JoJo. It may have been somebody else who speaks Japanese. But they basically said one of the reasons why the Japanese fans turned on Kenta was he has a very, Japanese is a very, indirect and very polite language, right? And the way he speaks, which isn't very obvious to us, even with subtitles, when he says stuff like, I want to show you Kenta's Pro Wrestling, or I'm going to show you Kenta's Pro Wrestling, that carries with it almost an implied statement of, I'm going to show you Kenta's Pro Wrestling because Kenta's Pro Wrestling is the superior pro wrestling to the way you people are used to doing pro wrestling. So it doesn't really come across well in subtitles, but he comes off to Japanese fans apparently in his promos, even before he turned heel. I'm saying, he came off very arrogant to them. So that apparently was a big part of Kenta turning, from what I was told anyway. So
yeah, I mean, we've heard the same thing, and we have people that have you kind of do the girlfriend or the wife test, right? Hey, why do you think this is? Just to get a perspective that might be outside of the wrestling world, right? I think we've all have done this in some form or fashion, right? And the feedback that we would get from people that are in Japan who did something similar to that, as to why Kenta is, just as you described, is that language that he would use, almost cocky, abrasive, in how he says what he says. And Joel, maybe you could speak a little bit more about that conversation that we had, possibly.
Yeah, we were just told that, similar to what John said, that the way he speaks is very aloof and arrogant. So just even the way that he's phrasing his promos when he was quote unquote a baby face, there was just that little sort of bubbling undercurrent of arrogance that was kind of turning people against him.
So it makes me wonder if that, because I thought at first that maybe the heel turn wasn't planned. Maybe they went with that because he was getting booed, but it makes me wonder if that was not the plan all along.
I think it was the plan from the jump, the way it all played out. It sure seems that way to me. And maybe he really was doing those type of promos because he knew where it was all leading. But I suspect, look, Kenta's my favorite wrestler of all time. And listening to this conversation, I think this makes him even cooler. I mean, I like the fact that he's because cocky asshole prick Kenta is the best Kenta. And that's exactly why he didn't work in WWE, because they did not understand that. So this is all like a revelation to me. And I think this makes I like him even more now. And he was already my favorite wrestler ever. I like the fact that his promos are cocky and in your face and just have that edge to them that piss people off, because that's his best attribute, being a smug little asshole that pisses people off. That will then kick you in the teeth.
So I'm going to say let's skip right past Kazuna Road, because really, who gives a fuck? Some stuff happened on it. I
know it's about Kazuna. I got 3 pages, John.
Yeah.
There was no show.
Can I just one thing?
Oh, sorry. Go, Joel. Give me Kazuna Road hot.
I was just going to say when they did Yes, when they did the video package revealing who's in the G1 at Korakuen.
Oh,
and
I forgot about this. I'm so glad you
when they showed the
up.
bit of Taichi, right? When they announced
Yes.
Taichi was going to be in it, there was a massive pop from the Korakuen crowd. They love that.
And Taichi was at ringside, like on commentary at Korakuen, and you could tell like the pop was so huge, and he wasn't expecting it. He actually breaks character for a second. Like if you watch when the camera focuses on him, and the man looks like he's about to cry. Honestly, like he's so happy, and then he realizes what he's like doing on camera, and he like gets it back together instantly. He's back to being like, "Oh, I don't care." It's just such a great moment. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I totally forgot about that. That Kazuna is the only highlight of Kazuna Road. It's the G1 Climax participants announcement. But yeah, it did end with a show in Sendai, which featured the amazing main event of Zack Sabre Jr. versus Yoshihashi for the Red Pro British Heavyweight title, and also featured Phantasmo against Taguchi for the Red Pro. And his G1 spot. That's right. I forgot about that. And it featured a Red Pro British Cruiserweight title match with Phantasmo and Taguchi. So these belts are defended more in New Japan.
They capped off a tour with a tour-ending show with 2 Rev Pro title matches on top and drew 1,800 fans.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. But I mean, they regularly they draw like fucking 4,000 for some of these World Tag League shows. You're just like, why 4,000 people going to World Tag League? But they go. I don't know. The Southern Showdown, I think the big thing, right, is the Eagles turn. I did not watch these shows. I will be honest. I did not watch the Australia shows. So, Joe, I assume the big thing is the Eagles turn, right?
Yeah, the Eagles turn, which culminated a 2-year story, and I love how the Melbourne, the MCW matches that Will Ospreay had with Robbie Eagles 2 years in a row are part of the New Japan canon. And this paid off that story from start to finish. Ospreay beats him the first year. Eagles beats him the second year. Brings him into comes to New Japan, but he betrays Will Ospreay by joining Bullet Club. And then we talked about the Super Junior match where Eagles has the crisis of faith, and doesn't know whether he should take the pin, and he begrudgingly takes the pin. And then finally they do the turn in Australia where it all began, and Robbie Eagles joins Chaos and comes back together with Will Ospreay. So if you're wrapped up in the Will Ospreay, Robbie Eagles stuff, this was a cool little 2-stop tour, which paid off, a story that had started 2 years earlier.
And it had that epic Juice Robinson, Mikey Nichols team getting their tag title shot. So
that is right.
The G1 Climax, again, we're running a little long, and we could do a whole podcast just on the G1. But what I want to say, first of all, the opening show in Dallas, I think people freaked the fuck out for no reason. 5,000 fans is a very good crowd. It just looked bad in that giant building, but I thought that crowd was like, I mean, I get why people were like, "Oh, it looks bad on TV," but that being in that crowd was so hot for everything. It's like you almost forgot how small they were compared to the building, and like they were. I would take a fucking 5,000 seat crowd like that, or 5,000 fan crowd like that over, WWE's 10,000 fans sitting on their hands any day of the week. I mean, that moment where Okada Tanahashi starts and the bell rings, and nobody, they don't do anything, and the crowd just all like spontaneously like stands up and just gives them a standing ovation just for like being there in front of them. That was an incredible moment that I will not soon forget. So
it was one of the best pro wrestling crowds. Yeah, it was one of the best pro wrestling crowds I've ever been a part of, and this is a guy that's been sitting in that crumhole ECW arena for many a month, and Spectrum shows back in the day, and Ring of Honor shows, and that was one of the best crowds. Now, look, I'm going to disagree with you, John, a little bit in the sense that, look, that was a disappointment. And if they thought their audience was just 5,000 people, then they would have booked a 5,000 seater, right? They wouldn't have booked a 12,000, a basketball NHL arena, right? And I don't care what kind of deal they might have gotten, or I don't know if it was a sold show or whatever the case may be, or if it wound up being profitable. They wanted asses in those seats. And when they're filling up sections of the crowd with people of the, and I'll put in air quotes, pro wrestling media, right? That's not a good look, right? We're right in a camera shot. We're literally right in a section that should be filled with fans. So again, while it was the best pro wrestling crowd I've ever been in front of, I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I thought the show was fantastic. That it was just a bad look. It was just a bad look to have it in that building.
Yeah, that's true. Joe, you were there too.
Yeah, I think it was just so smart to give that crowd Okada Tanahashi, because a great deal of the people, most of the people there became New Japan fans because of Okada versus Tanahashi. So to give people that match, I don't think was just a device to attempt to draw fans. I think it was a kind of a thank you to everybody too. And here's your thank you for the fact that we could even run this show. Here's Okada and Tanahashi. The preeminent feud of the decade, and what a lot of you, the reason that you're a New Japan fan to begin with. And I think that's part of the reason that got that enormous response that it did when they hadn't even touched yet. And for me personally, it was just the greatest moment of live wrestling I've ever been a part of, for me personally. And I've been to a lot of shows. Like Damon, I'm 1,000 years old. ECW arena regular, you go back, many years. I've been to every promotion on earth. And that was just a special, special moment. That feud is the reason that, the Voices of Wrestling website has grown, that the flagship podcast has grown. The reason that people pay me to listen to me talk about pro wrestling is because of, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kazuchika Okada. So that was, I had goosebumps. I had chills up there in the flagship suite, as a matter of fact, Damon. I'm not even making that up. It was literally the flagship suite. Yeah. That's right. So a tremendous moment, and I'm glad that they gave people that match in particular.
The rest of the G1, I mean, again, there's just so much that's we probably be talking forever about it. My macro thoughts are, the G1 started off awesome with those shows at Oda Ward, the Sapporo, and then the Three Hurricanes. There was like a little itty bitty like downturn where I could understand why you might not call it the best G1 ever. Like what was the show that wasn't that great? Maybe Fukuoka and Takamatsu were the two. But I mean, there's always like that little period in the middle that's not great. But once they get back to Osaka, those Osaka shows, we have Naito and Shingo and Okada and Sonata back to back. I mean, those are two of the best, back to back like main events they've ever done. I mean, those are, a 5-star match and a 4 3/4 star match for me, at least, for Naito, Shingo, and Okada, Sonata. So 2 awesome matches there. They go to Yokohama, which has that amazing Shingo Ishii match, and they go back to the Budokan, where you have Okada and Ibushi, Naito and White, Taichi and Ishii, where Taichi pays off his year-long storyline where he fires up in front of the Budokan crowd and beats Tomohiro Ishii clean as a sheet while they're all going crazy. That's, again, one of those moments that'll stick with me for a long time. And then you have the really good final with Jay White and Ibushi, which probably the first time I really, really connected with Jay White. And, it would go on into his destruction where, I thought that Jay White Ibushi final was really awesome. And you have some other great moments on that G1 final too, which we can get into. But those are like macro G1 thoughts. If anyone wants to throw some more at me. Joel, you didn't get to talk about Dallas, so anything macro G1.
Well, from Dallas, I think the Lance Archer Will Ospreay match was notable because that was just like a real party for Lance Archer, being out there in front of his home fans and getting that moment. Big match, big win, terrific match. And I think that is probably got to be one of, if not the highlight for Lance Archer's year. A great moment for him. And just to echo your thoughts on the G1, I mean, it's difficult to sort of break it down any further. I mean, I'm just looking at our Super J Cast's year-end awards match of the year results, and there's a lot of G1 matches in here. We've got Ospreay Tanahashi from night 17 is in there, Ospreay versus Ibushi from night 5, Ibushi Okada from night 17. We got Sanada Okada, where Sanada just won it in the last second. I thought that was a tremendous match, really exciting, and just proves that the tournament format can make matches much more exciting when there are, you've got that 30-minute time limit and there are things at stake where otherwise if it's Sanada Okada in a title match, that Sanada doesn't have a chance. Moxley versus Ishii had a really good reception from night 6. You mentioned Takagi versus Naito as well from night 14. Okada versus Ospreay from night 7. People loved that match. That placed really highly. That was the 5th highest match on our poll. So that was one that really resonated with a lot of people. Like you said, Takagi versus Ishii, and then the finals I thought were tremendous as well. There was a Taichi versus Shingo match at Kraken, which I absolutely loved. And I thought that was a real sort of line in the sand for Taichi, where there was just no bullshit. It was just like an absolute, stiffing the shit out of each other, strong style brawl between the two of them. That was amazing.
Scampy, with a Scampy running in.
It certainly is. I was going to start selling Scampy t-shirts. I think I've got to capitalize on this somehow.
Yeah. David, give me some macro G1 thoughts.
My favorite pro wrestling time of the year is definitely G1, and specifically 3 nights at Cork. I just love the atmosphere, and I love matches that maybe on paper might not seem like the sexiest, that they'll over deliver, and then matches that you're looking forward to, since the announcement. Dallas was a tremendous time. We talked about that. The finals with Jay White and Ibushi. I mean, Joel, we talked about this, and just once again, this is a perfect. I mean, 2019 might be the year that you didn't get what you wanted, but you're happy that you didn't, right? And when it came to that Naito Jay White match, where you got kicked in the balls, right? And
I was very angry.
Yeah,
I came on this show and ranted and raved, and I was very angry on Twitter. But I mean, the way it's worked out now, we don't know the result, so that's always a dangerous thing. I don't know the end result of the Tokyo Dome, but as far as what they decided to do and how they decided to do it, I can't. I mean, at the end of the day, I have no complaints.
Right.
As far as like the double gold dad, I don't have any complaints.
And again,
so I was wrong. I will go as far as to say, but I thought that was it for Naito. I thought he was getting eliminated, and he was going to go fight whoever the fuck, John Moxley or something, because he lost to him during the G1 at the Dome, and that was it. I did not see. It wasn't until after the G1 where Coda started talking about the double title thing, where I was like, oh, okay, like they are doing that. They're doing this weird double title thing.
But at that moment, you're thinking, you're rooting for the sports team. You're rooting for the Buffalo Bills at that point, and sorry to use a late '80s, early '90s football analogy, but you get to the big dance, but you never get in the big win, and you don't want to see your guy turn into fucking Hiroki Goto. And then you follow that up with White, who nobody wanted to see win. Right, he was the heel of all heels, and against the ultimate babyface. Right, so I mean, I don't know what else you want in pro wrestling. You got that, and again, Ibushi getting the win, and everybody, rooting as hard as they could, like they were 13 years old again for Ibushi to kick the shit out of White, who fucked everybody over. So I don't think you can ask for anything more in pro wrestling.
The one of like the memories again I will have from this year was when Jay White comes out and he has the entire Bullet Club with him for that final, and he turns and he points, and there's fucking Kenta, who had just gotten finished in one of like the greatest heel turns of all time that we haven't even talked about yet, and Kenta walks out with that Bullet Club shirt behind him, and Jay White's like, I can't do a fucking accent. There he is. There's Kenta, and like it's just such an outstanding moment, and like they come out there and you're like, wow, I hate you even more now because you have this asshole who just like killed his best friend. So yeah, just an outstanding moment.
When you're in the just one more thought. When you're in the moment, you wonder and you question and you think, what the fuck are they thinking? Why can't what? And then you get to a moment like this where it's like, okay, you got your notes in front of you, you're kind of reviewing the year, and you're like, God damn, that was fucking brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, they pulled it off. They really made the double gold thing. Just gave everybody something to root for. So it made total sense in hindsight. Joe, your whole macro G1 thoughts, or the final, whatever else you want to talk about on G1.
Well, I'm the real hero of the G1. I'm going to put myself over because on top of doing daily G1 audio, during the G1, I also did daily All Japan Junior Tag Battle of Glory audio. So show me somebody who's going to be all over the board like that.
Did you hear last week? I guess you probably haven't heard the show, but the Miscellaneous Pure episode, they shouted you out. Like Gerard was like, Joe Lanza apparently did audio for that tournament. He's probably the only one on the planet who even watched it. Even Gerard, Mr. All Japan man, hand waved that fucking tournament. He did not even watch it. So
not only did I do audio, I did it during the G1 audio, which is enough of a grind. But also number 2, I'll put myself over again. It is on tape. You can go back and listen to it. In the flagship immediately following the G1 final, I said that Naito would come out of the double dome with the title, and everybody laughed at me. But the 2 domes, it was fishy to me. Something smelled about it. I thought they'd have something up their sleeve, and I was the only person on Earth in the universe who was still confident that Tetsuya Naito, despite coming up short in the G1, would come out of those domes holding up that IWGP Heavyweight title. So I'm also going to pat myself on the back for that. Some other G1 themes that haven't been brought up yet since I went last. There's not many left, so I will just go quickly. Will Ospreay, the big scalp over Tanahashi. Huge win, huge moment. Even though both wrestlers were eliminated at the time of the match, they still put it in Sumo Hall because they wanted to put a spotlight on that moment of Will Ospreay defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi. And also the Ospreay versus Okada match. Oh, my God. Just an incredible match. And I completely disagree. Dave Meltzer, Ospreay should have won that one. No. He got the win over Tanahashi. You saved those other wins. He doesn't have to beat those other guys for years, especially Okada.
Why would you have Ospreay's first win over Okada be at Corkin Hall? I didn't understand that at all.
Makes no sense. And now on top of it, if you count the Rev Pro match, which I believe is part of the canon because the two companies are so closely aligned, Okada now is 4-0 against Ospreay. So you're building up all of this stock for when Will Ospreay eventually beats him, the same way you did for Sonata. So it would have been very silly to give Ospreay the win in that moment, especially in his first G1, where I don't know how you guys feel. Maybe this is a quick question before we move on. I have no problem with Will Ospreay and Shingo, quote unquote, struggling and, having 500 records or going 4-5 or whatever it was in their first G1. I like the slow progression. I like that these juniors, they got enough big wins to where it was respectable. They didn't need to have winning records and be in the mix at the end. So that's my stance on it. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
No, I agree because Shingo beat Ishii. It's not like Shingo didn't get big wins. I mean, Shingo got that moment against Naito where, and again, I understand that some people don't. I'm trying to say it in a non-condescending way. If you have like a certain, I guess you always call it when you talk about AEW, like WWE brain, right? You don't understand that like losing a major match like that can be a bigger deal than winning it. But when Shingo's big moment of this tournament was losing to Naito, because that did more for him than even beating Naito would have in that moment. Because Naito, he gives him that little look where he's like, you gave me everything you had. You hit every fucking move you could, but I just pulled it out this time. But maybe next time you'll get me. And Shingo, he looks back at him as he's leaving, and he gives that little look like, next time I'm going to get you. And that makes it a bigger deal when he does beat Naito. You don't give it away on the first meeting. You don't have Shingo Takagi, in there against Tetsuya Naito and just say, all right, well, now Shingo's the hot thing of the month, so obviously now he beats Naito. You build to that. You make that a big deal when it happens. But nobody has like a brain for this anymore, I guess, because, you're used to those 1 month pay-per-view cycles where it's like, okay, well, TLC's over, so nothing that happened means anything anymore. But that's
John, I just saw so much shit that like New Japan totally ruined the elevations of Will Ospreay and Shingo by booking them so shitty in the G1. I'm like, what G1 did you watch? Stop looking at the one-loss records. Look at who they beat. Look at who they lost to, and look at who they faced in the big buildings, which is what really matters. I don't care what Will Ospreay did against fucking Bad Luck Fale in some fucking village somewhere on a show that 4,000 people watch. I care about Sumo Hall, Korakuen Hall, the focus shows, Osaka, Show and that's what matters. And they have time to pick up these wins down the line. So that's just something that annoyed me coming out of the G1. And I get it. It's people who parachute in and basically they watch Wrestle Kingdom and they watch G1. I understand that. That's where a lot of this is coming from. But listen, if I didn't argue against imaginary boogeymen, I wouldn't have a podcast. So that's what we do.
Yeah, it's just really bizarre because like I Shingo, I don't really know how you could have a complaint, and I said this too when some people complained about him not getting a focus match on Wrestle Kingdom, which I get it. There's 2 nights, and you would ideally like to have more people get that focus match, but it's more important to me to see them save the Shingo push, to have that be able to have those big matches and have those big moments and give him those big wins when he's really ready for it and when the promotion is ready for it. And I don't think that's right now. I mean, he's very, he hasn't done anything in the back half of the year, so you hold off on that. I mean, you could have done Shingo Suzuki, sure, but it doesn't mean that Shingo Takagi's fucking buried and you're never going to go back to him again. I mean, I would be shocked if he didn't go on a run in the New Japan Cup this year. So, I think people just need to be a little more patient sometimes. Which I know sounds funny coming from me, but especially with the Naito stuff. But Naito fans have been patient to a degree, and we have been fucked with. And hopefully, we're finally going to get what we have been waiting for on January 4th and 5th. But everybody else, I mean, look, Shingo Takagi was a junior heavyweight 2 months ago. He was a Dragon Gate wrestler a year ago. I mean, you do have to cool your jets a little bit. It's going to happen. I mean, they're not going to send Shingo Takagi to Yoshihashi land because he went 4-5 in the G1. So anyway.
John, it's patience we're just not. We don't have that mindset, right? And the slow burn that people can't appreciate. It's really what it comes down to. This company does the slow burn. Right, there's a progression. That's why there's secondary titles that actually mean something. Right, there's a reason there are young lions wearing black tights doing Boston crabs. It all plays into a progression. And again, some people maybe don't have the patience for it, and some people again maybe they just don't appreciate the slow burn. But this is a company that lives and dies by the slow burn.
Yeah. I mean, you can't expect
first
them to
ballot Hall of Famer Gato is not an instant gratification booker. It really has never been. I mean, it's very rare that they strap the rocket pack. I mean, they put it on Okada, they put it on AJ Styles. Those are really the only 2 examples you come up with. Anything else is a slow burn, like Damon is saying. Will Ospreay went the first year and a half in this company doing nothing but tags. I mean, and now look, if you're patient and you wait, generally the right people are going to get pushed and the timing is going to be right. We have, plenty of precedent to back that up. So yeah, I agree. This isn't a promotion if you're looking for that instant gratification. They're not just going to flip the switch and push people to the moon overnight. It just doesn't work that way. There's a lot of thought put into it and there's a lot of long-term planning put into it.
All right. So we're running very long, but let's get through the back half of the year as fast as we can. Royal Quest, I thought it was a really good show. Maybe Okada's best title match of the year, which in a year where most of Okada's best work was G1 and New Japan Cup. I thought this was him and Suzuki was an awesome fucking match. I went 4.5, which it looks like is also what Dave Meltzer gave it. Tanahashi and Zack, I love this match. Even the Girls' Destiny to Aussie Open was pretty good, and some good stuff on the undercard. I mean, the only disappointment was Kenta and Ishii just because of the concussion or whatever happened there with Kenta. But what are you going to do? I still thought this was a really strong show. And again, the UK crowd was great. Joel, you're originally from the UK, so go ahead. What do you think of the Royal Quest? Anything to add on that?
So unfortunately, my enduring memory of this show is going to be Editor Dan and his little running with Michael Craven outside. So all the matches are going to fall secondary to that. And I think it was just one of those shows where it was, if you were there live in the building, then this is going to be one of your shows of the year. Watching it on New Japan Worlds, maybe some of that appeal is lost because, again, it was a great match between Okada and Suzuki, but there was no danger of Okada losing that title. So that does somewhat compromise the dramatic tension of the match for me. But overall, really good show. And, aside from that, Ishii getting... who is it that got hurt in that match? It was Kenta, wasn't it? when Kenta got dropped, and he was a bit woozy after that. But aside from that, it was a really good show, and exactly the sort of show that the London fans want. Because if you remember last year when they had those kind of sort of jointly promoted shows, they had 2 nights with RevPro, didn't they? Was it Strong Style Evolved UK or something like that? And they were a big hit. So it was a really good moment, I think, for the UK crowd to finally get a big New Japan show all to their own. And I'm sure they're going to get more in the future.
Anyone else want to throw any thoughts on RealQuest before I try to quickly move through?
I will just say one thing about the piss poor job of Fight TV that I will constantly and will always lay the boots to for just a terrible production job and a disappointment. And there were, refunds were a struggle, and it was just a nightmare. So there's a certain point when you're at a show where you're just throwing up your hands. You're like, fuck it. It's a nice, beautiful day outside. The sun's shining. What am I sitting here trying to fight with this goddamn Fight TV shit to watch this show? I'll watch it later. And that's what they did. So between that, the Craven situation that we had personally have happened, that was just a weird day, to say the least. But upon rewatch, I really enjoyed the show. I thought the show was stellar, and I thought, again, that UK crowd really brought it. So that added to the excitement.
Joe?
God survives again. They beat MVP. They beat Sonata and Evil. They beat Aussie Open. They just, every time you thought that they might lose those fucking titles, they survive again. And poor Mark Davis, blows out his knee or whatever a couple weeks later, and Aussie Open misses out on the World Tag League. So I think Aussie Open will be a major factor as much as a tag team can be a major factor in New Japan in 2020, though. So
yeah. Destruction Tour. The thing that really stands out to me was, first of all, Beppu. I thought all 3 main events were really good. I loved Tanahashi and Zack again. I was the type that could not get enough of their matches. I loved them all. I really loved Ibushi and Kenta and Kagoshima, which I seemed to be kind of on an island with that match, but I thought that match was fantastic. Just Kenta's heel work I thought was really amazing in that match, and Ibushi's selling, and I went 4.5 on it. And then Naito and White, I know that is the Joel and John Island, because you and I adored that match, and nobody else adored it to that level. But I was like, I gave it 4.5 stars. I'm like, I'm gonna be the high one on this. I really loved it. And then you come on your podcast a day later and totally overshadow me and giving it 5. So I was like, okay, loved it even more than I did. But yeah, so why don't you start then, Joel? Give me the Naito White praise.
Yeah, I realise I'm probably the only person on the planet who went that high, just because in ring, it was fine. It was a good match, but it was just the character work for me. And particularly, I just thought this was a tour de force from Jay White, where I felt this was the perfect synergy between him and his wrestling and his heel work. And he was just talking shit to Naito the whole way through the match. And every single moment and every move was punctuated and accentuated by him doing something or saying something that just made him look like the biggest shithead in the world. And just the dynamics between him and Naito were playing off each other brilliantly. And, the build had been great. And a lot of people saying, this is quite a horny match. There's a lot of sexual tension there as well. And then when it all boiled over and just this sort of escalation and one-upsmanship, it was just from a character point of view, I think that was just one of the best matches I've ever seen, and a tremendous performance from Jay White.
I got in a lot of trouble on Twitter for saying how horny it was. Apparently, if you point out that 2 men spitting on each other is, which is what they were doing, spitting on each other and smiling in the GIF, is a little horny, you'll get some guy from the fucking barber's chair net quote tweeting you about how your fucking fan fiction is weird. Okay, they're John. I'm describing the image. What do you want from me?
New Japan Pro Wrestling, if you are in denial, if anyone is in denial that this is a company that heavily leaning into the homoeroticism, they've just released a titty book. Come on.
They have an audience, okay, of women in Japan that love this shit. So, if you want to ignore it, you can, but it's clearly there. So I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry, John. Barber's Care Net.
Well, it just tells you that those people watch shitty porn.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, Do you want anything on the Destruction shows, Joe? I know you always put the pick on Destruction and Beppu, or Bipu, as you put it. So,
I mean, this tour, I had 2 matches on the entire tour hit my notebook, and neither one of them are, exactly sniffing match of the year. But I will say that this was smack dab in the middle of the Birds of Prey versus Phantasmo and Ishimori feud. They had 4 matches over the course of the year. And to me, this was the best tag team feud of the year in New Japan, and produced the best tag team matches all year long in the company, mostly because Guerrillas of Destiny were eating up the heavyweight division. But yeah, that's really the only notable. The only other notebook match I had on the whole tour was Goto Shingo. So I did not, really like that match all that much, and this tour just didn't do nothing for me.
Is possibly
can we give a hat tip as well? The rise of Carl Fredericks, because he won the New Japan Cup. Sorry, not the New Japan Cup, the Young Lions Cup in the tour, didn't he? Yeah.
That's a good shout right there. I mean, that guy's going to be a fucking megastar. And I'm glad that those guys got a little spot on the Tokyo Dome, because they worked their asses off this year. Not just Fredericks, but all of them. Remember, they got, thrown on to that New Beginning in USA tour that was a disaster, and they worked some Ring of Honor early in the year, and they worked hard on this tour. I'm glad you brought that up, because I totally would have forgot about it.
And Naito White was possibly the only Naito, well, not even possibly, the only major Naito match of the year where I was rooting against Naito, because I knew that, if he loses that match and loses the IC title, then they're definitely doing that double gold shit, and he's going to face White on 1-4. And then the best part of this, by the way, were the WWE concern troll takes. If you look at Twitter, where they would go, "Oh, Naito, he just lost the IC title to Jay White. He should come to WWE and have a run as the U.S. champion. He has to get out of New Japan." Meanwhile, any Naito fan with a brain, which is pretty much all the Naito fans that I follow, were throwing a parade, because we all figured out by this point that the double title thing was happening, and him losing means they're doing the rematch at Wrestle Kingdom. The time to do your fucking concern troll tweets was last month at the G1, when he lost to Jay White. That was the time to do them, but these people pay so little attention that they thought the time to do it was here, and basically we all just laughed at them, because it's this is no one. There are no actual sad Naito fans now. We know that he's going to the Dome against Jay. We figured this out. It's fine, but no, the anti-crack account was trying to set us straight on Tetsuya Naito. I just had to
so this is what. So this is what it's like to be on the other end of these rants. This is, I get it. I feel like cringe.
Fighting Spirit Unleashed, I just want to mention very quickly. Damon, you went to all 3 shows. I went to 2 of them in New York and Boston. Great atmospheres, great crowds. Everybody was having a great time, especially, in New York, once the show actually started, they were having a great time, not before that. But yeah, I mean, not a ton newsworthy really, but just, if that's the model, I would go to those New York and Philly shows a million times out. I know some people were disappointed by the level of card or whatever, but if they would come to New York and do a Korakuen type show like that, or I think I even like the Philly show more than the New York show, honestly, with the elimination match, because I'm a mark for those elimination matches. But I would go to those every time. They could, if they ran the fucking Hammerstein monthly, I would go every month. So, that's the level.
All good shows. Again, just quick. They were fast. They kind of felt like you were in and you were out. There was no lollygag. There was no. Look, we had the Hammerstein fiasco for the start, and the fire trucks and all that nonsense, the ambulances, and we needed 2 of them and whatever. We're an hour late in, and my edibles are wearing off, and what are we doing here, right? I thought Lowell was my favorite of the 3. I enjoyed that one the most. Again, that somebody had to take the fall, and I I can't get over it. But Naito taking the fall clean as a sheet in the middle of the ring was jarring in Lowell in that tag match.
I'm aren't you expecting them to like 6 months from now, Naito will be standing there maybe as champion, and Tanahashi will walk up and he'll be like, "Remember, I pinned you in Massachusetts in September. I expect them to do that.
Right. I mean, they would, but again, it was. Look, I don't want to sit here and circle jerk, but New Japan fans, man, they're just some of the most knowledgeable and fun, and they know all the spots, and they know when to cheer, and they know when to pull back, and like I really just enjoy going to those type of shows. Again, I like the Lowell one the best, the Massachusetts one, the Hammerstein one was good, but again, you weren't getting out of there till pretty late. So it felt like a real long day, and then the next day was a 4:00 show, and I felt like I was on my couch by 9, right? Yeah. So I can't complain about that at all. And I enjoyed the shows. I thought the matches were good. Again, nothing blow away, but I think if they made these shows just like you said, if these shows were what we are getting for this this New Japan Pro Wrestling territory thing. I'm down. I think they're enjoyable shows.
I was just about to say that, David. I think these shows are proof of concept for the New Japan Pro Wrestling of America, where they're smaller shows, smaller venues, but hot crowds, fun shows, and I think that's the way forward in 2020.
Yep.
King of Pro Wrestling. You can start with you, Joe, since you didn't talk about the Fangs for Unleashed. I thought this was a really good show. Not maybe to the level of some. Actually, no. I thought everything on this show was really good. It's one of these shows I'm forgetting how good it was until I look at the card. I mean, some people really hated the Suzuki Liger match, and I get because I get why, because it was like such a violent build, and then they did, they kind of just grappled. But I thought that match was awesome, especially if you divorce it from the build. Archer and Robin Juice had like a fun little wild brawl. I liked both the double main event. That Okada-Sonata match getting match of the year in the Tokyo Sports Awards was a shock, but apparently that's because as much about like the fact that they were recovering from that tsunami is more than anything. Like, I guess they felt like it, was a great way to like come back from the tsunami. But yeah, Joe, what'd you think of the King of Pro Wrestling?
Yeah, their G1 match was their best match, in my opinion. Okada and Sonata. But King of Pro Wrestling, I mean, the Suzuki Liger, I didn't hate it. It just wasn't what I was expecting or wanting. So it was kind of disappointing from that perspective. I thought Will Ospreay Phantasmo was fantastic and the best match of the night. That was the show where Lance Archer stepped in for Moxley and then actually won the title. So who knows what's going on with these two Dome shows. It's definitely not where they want it to be at this point, but it's where they are. We'll see who comes out of it with the title. And yeah, I thought it was a King of Pro Wrestling was a good show, but I don't think it wasn't one of the best shows of the year. That's for sure. I liked Wrestle Kingdom better. I liked the Dominion better. I like MSG better. So there were a number of shows I thought were better than this, but it was all right.
The Archer stepping up thing, it did lead to like a great line from Moxley when he came back the next month, where he was like, you didn't beat me for that title. Delta Airlines beat me for that title. Yeah. I just thought that was a fantastic line. I'm sure he came up with that himself. But
yeah.
Anyway, so Joel, anything to add about the King of Pro Wrestling as we run very long here?
It was just nice to see El Desperado make his comeback. I didn't mention it when we were talking about Best of the Super Juniors, but I think he was a big miss from that, because if you think of all the matches that we missed out on because of that injury with the was it Jun Kasai, but it ended up breaking his jaw. So it was really nice to see him come back. And I quite enjoyed the Ospreay El Phantasmo match. If you'd have told me that there was going to be a 28-minute long ELP match on this show, the fifth match, I would have probably imagined I'd hate it. But I thought this was really well done. It was kind of match where if you turn your brain off and just enjoy it for the fun that it is, then I thought it was really good. And this was also coming off the back of El Phantasmo winning the Super J Cup, which is worth pointing out too.
Damon, King of Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, King of Pro Wrestling, again, for me, Liger Suzuki. And I thought Liger Suzuki was one of the most enjoyable aspects of 2019. The idea of two guys that, are in their 50s, are not just going through the motions and actually having, arguably at the time, the best feud in New Japan Pro Wrestling for this year, for 2019. Did the match play out the way that I think people not only wanted but thought it would, being that we're in blood feud territory? Maybe not, but I like the fact. Look, again, we're talking about visuals and snapshots that we're going to take to our grave. And Suzuki bowing to Liger, that might be one of them, right? So, yeah, I mean, again, for me, that feud and the way that we got to this point was great. The match, maybe it wasn't everything that we wanted, but I still thought it had some pretty great moments.
Oh, right. That's going to be
struggle.
Liger's final singles match.
Yeah. I guess it will be. Yeah. Wow. Power struggle, which we already talked about the Super Junior Tag League, and again, we're short on time here. Power struggle to me is like the sneaky good show every year now, where like I'm not always super hyped for it, but by the time we get there, it's just there's always stuff on it I really like. In this case, I love Naito and Taichi. I thought they had like a really great like 13-minute condensed version of their previous series. Kenta Ishii was really good. Ospreay and Bushi, which all these matches Will Ospreay had this year that I think people are gonna have rated higher than me. I thought this was fucking one of the low-key awesome matches he had. I went like 4.5 stars on it. Like I thought Bushi, he doesn't get a chance to show it a lot, really stepped up here, and they just had a really awesome match for the junior title. And then obviously the Hiromu return at the end was just so fucking cool. And then White and Goto, not as high on, probably like 3.5, but like, if that match had been like, like a really outstanding match, it could have been like a real, top level show of the year contender. But overall, I still thought it was a good show, and I put it above King of Pro Wrestling, which always seems to happen for me, honestly. Joe, I guess, do you have any power struggle thoughts?
Nah, yeah, I liked King of Pro Wrestling better. But Will Ospreay Bushi was awesome. Hiroki Goto, though, I thought he had his worst year in a long time, and I am an unabashed Goto fan and defender. Just a lot of his big stuff just did not land for me, and this match was among them, this match against White. So I didn't love this show. I'm glad that Kenta and Ishii had a chance to make up for the concussion, though, and go out there and have a solid match.
Yeah, the Goto did have a weird year. I thought all of his best stuff. I really liked the Naito match in the G1, but not a ton of people seemed to agree with me. And God, what else was his best stuff? There's not a ton of. And the Shingo.
There's not much. There's just not much.
The two Shingo matches, the G1 match and the Destruction match. But yeah, I mean, he did have kind of a quiet year finally. But we'll see. I mean, he's starting out 2020 really big, so we'll see how that goes with Kenta. Damon or Joel, any power struggle thoughts?
I just think that it's, Goto is one of those guys, and we can, again, probably spend an hour talking just about Goto. He's just one of those guys that, when you start putting faith in the fact that he's going to deliver on a consistent basis, he comes out and he just, I wouldn't necessarily say throws a stinker, but just throws one of those matches where you're just like, oh, come on, what are we doing here? And it happens 2019. I felt like it happened more than where you were jumping out of your chair for a Goto match. And that might be age, and that might be injuries, and that just might be a lot of dings on the chassis. But it's becoming a little bit more self-evident as the years go on that you might not always, you're going to get that time where you're not going to pay attention and he's going to over-deliver. And then you're going to get that time where you're really invested and you're like, what the fuck? So that's Goto for me.
Joel, anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to throw some more flowers at the Super Junior Tag League, which was came to a head at Power Struggle. I just really like the way we had 4 good teams jockeying for the top spot with Birds of Prey, El Fantasma Ishimori, Roppongi 3K, and Kanemaru Desperado. And all the stuff between those guys are really good. And I also want to give some credit to New Japan for booking a clear winner and having a 2 versus 2 tag title match, not just for this, but also for the heavyweight tag title match, which is something a lot of us were not expecting after last year's 3-way shenanigans. So well done, New Japan, for giving us simple tag title matches.
I'm skipping right over Showdown in San Jose and LA. I didn't see the LA show. San Jose show was fine. Nothing like super crazy, but I did enjoy it. The World Tag League, again, I think we can skip right over that. But the finals were good. I really liked Juice and Finley and against Evil and Sonata. That was a really good match. So definitely check that out if you missed it. The Road to Tokyo Dome. I was curious, Joe. You said you didn't really care for these 3 shows at Korakuen. I thought these were like all really fun shows, but I think you said on Twitter you had a hard time getting into it.
I don't know. They didn't really do anything for me. I saw some people raving about the one Ishii tag and, obviously the Liger stuff. I enjoyed that, but I don't know. It just felt like a big blob of tag matches that I didn't care about. I think at this point I'm just, after World Tag League and trying to get through that, it's like I'm just burnt out and I'm ready for the Dome, and none of this connected with me at all.
I don't know. I enjoyed these shows a lot, especially the first and the third. I thought were the best too. The second one maybe more skippable if you're really short on time, but I did like these shows quite a bit. Damon or Joel, any quick Road to Tokyo Dome thoughts?
I mean, these shows were about Liger for me, and just the last matches there, and even those matches were just the second match in a tag, and he did main event the last one, and but even then, he made sure he ate that Rainmaker and got the fuck out of the ring, and there was no celebration, there was no nothing. He knew he had literally and figuratively a job to do, and whoop, to the back he went so he can make room for the post-match angle, which, again, classic Liger, right? Classic Liger, just making doing what he has to do, get out of the ring so that we can build toward a Wrestle Kingdom main event. So, once again, hats off to him.
Joel, anything to add?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, World Tag League, I thought gave us 2 really great moments. One, that Suzuki-gun, the Inter-Suzuki-gun match with
that was
Dangerous
awesome.
Tekkers against Suzuki and Archer. So that was tremendous. One of the definitely tag highlights of the year. And also, like you said, that that heartwarming, feel-good moment in the final where everyone came down to celebrate with Juice and Finley at the end. So I think this is understated. Last year there wasn't really anything memorable from World Tag League, but this year having 2 moments that you can hang your hat on, I think is worth celebrating. And I can't remember which show was it where Ibushi finally snapped and absolutely twatted Okada in the head with a briefcase. Was that the Road 2 shows, or was that before then?
No, it was one of the World Tag League shows, not even the final, I think. Oh, no, I think it was the final. Yeah, it was the World Tag League towards the final or right towards the end. Yeah.
So I think that was good as well, because Ibushi kind of got lost in the shuffle a bit with a build to the double gold dash. But here he was just like, finally had enough of Okada's bullshit and just like, take that, you bastard. And now he's fired up and I'm more interested.
It led to an underrated moment too at the Korakuen shows where Jay White is like, oh, you want to be bad, huh? Let's come to Bullet Club, and tries to recruit him. And Ibushi totally blows him off in the ring, and then goes backstage and totally buries the Bullet Club. Where he's like, are the Bullet Club supposed to? His exact words are like, are the Bullet Club supposed to be heels? I could be a way bigger heel than them if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do it. So he just totally fucking buries them and blows them off, which I thought was so funny. But there you go. But yeah, that's the year in review, I guess. Okay, really quickly, you guys are going to do previews on your own shows, but I just want to get an answer from all 3 of you. What is the January 5th main event, and who wins it? I think we're all probably in agreement on who wins it, but I want to see. Joe?
Yeah, Naito over Okada.
Joel?
Yeah, agree.
Damon?
Make it 3 for 3. Yep, I think that's what we've been building for over a year. So here's your payoff, LIJ fans.
I agree. I think it's Naito over Okada. So there you go. The awards, I don't know if we have enough time. I'm going to say, I guess we could do a executive decision on the air here. I'm going to say read them off very quickly, but we cannot really describe anything. So my match of the year, I have Sonata Okada in 5th from the G1. Ibushi Naito in the New Japan Cup in 4th. Okada Sonata from the New Japan Cup final in 3rd. Ibushi Naito for the Intercontinental Dominion in 2nd. And my New Japan match of the year and my overall number 2, Naito versus Shingo from the G1 on August 4th. Joe, very quickly, your top 5.
Okay, 5, Okada and Will from the G1. 4, Sonata and Okada from the G1. 3, Naito and Shingo from the G1. 2, Shingo and Dragon Lee from the Best of the Super Juniors. And number 1, and my number 1 overall, Will and Shingo from Best of the Super Juniors.
Joel?
Number 5, I got Okada versus White from Wrestle Kingdom, Naito versus White at Destruction, Ibushi versus White in the G1 final, Shingo Ospreay Best of Super Juniors final, and then Omega Tanahashi is my number 1 for Wrestle Kingdom.
Damon?
I went 5, Tana and Omega from Wrestle Kingdom. 4 was Ibushi White, the G1 final. 3 was Shingo and Ishii from G1 Night 16. My second place was Okada versus Will from G1 Night 7. And my number 1 match of the year was Will Shingo, Best of the Super Junior final.
Best major show, I went Power Struggle in 3rd. I said I really liked that show. The Best of Super Junior finals from June 5th at Sumo Hall, number 2. And my number 1 was the G1 Climax finals. I just thought I just said we came to descriptions. Between the Kenta turn and the main event, that show will stand out to me forever. And Suzuki pinning Okada. So I thought that was my little surprise best major show pick there. Joe?
Wrestle Kingdom 1, MSG 2, Dominion 3.
Okay. Very chalk list. Damon?
I went MSG 3, Best of the Super Junior Finals 2, and Wrestle Kingdom number 1.
And Joel?
Yeah, exactly the same as Damon. So MSG, Best of the Super Juniors final, Wrestle Kingdom 13.
Best feud, I went Naito White in 3rd, Minoru Suzuki and Jushin Liger in 2nd, and Naito Ibushi in 1st. What did you go with here, Joe?
I didn't do my homework, apparently, on this one because I don't have a list. I must have missed that one, so skip right over me.
Okay. Damon?
Yep. I was at toss-up. I was struggling for my 3rd. So pick one or the 2. I went Mox Juice and Ibushi Naito. We could flip-flop either one of those depending upon what day it is. Second was White Naito. And my number 1, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great for 2 50-year-old guys duking it out, Liger Suzuki.
Joel?
3rd place, I've got the little 4-way feud with Eagles, Ospreay, El Phantasmo, and Ishimori. 2nd place, Naito and White. And 1st place, Ishii and Taichi.
Tag team of the year. I had a hard time with this one. Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. in 3rd. Just off their fucking World Tag League run. I don't care. I enjoyed it an awful lot, so whatever. And this wasn't a strong year for tag teams. 2nd, I went with Desperado and Kanemaru. Again, I liked their stuff a lot in the early part and the closing part, even though Despy was hurt. And I just kind of gave it to Roppongi 3K in 1st by default. So there you go. Joe?
My tag team of the year is Birds of Prey. Number 2 is Phantasmo and Ishimori. And number 3 is Bushi and Shingo.
Damon?
Yeah, I feel bad because I didn't have Bushi and Shingo, and the more that we talk about it, I wish we did. But I went Ishimori and El Phantasmo for 3rd. I actually went GOD for 2nd. I thought they had a decent year, probably better than most years. So, and they're social. I know we're not supposed to talk about why, but I went GOD too. And 3, Roppongi 3K.
Okay. Oh, you mean 1 Roppongi 3K?
1, correct. Yeah, they're my tag team of the year.
Joe?
Yeah, I didn't pick Birds of Prey or Dangerous Tekkers or Bushi Shingo because just they weren't there for the whole year. So I've gone 3rd, Despy and Kanemaru, 2nd, ELP Ishimori, and 1st, Roppongi 3K.
All right, so most outstanding wrestler, in ring only. I went with Kota Ibushi in 3rd, Tetsuya Naito in 2nd, and Shingo Takagi in 1st for my favorite most outstanding in ring wrestler. Joe?
Number 1 is Will Ospreay. Number 2 is Shingo, and number 3 is Okada.
Damon?
I went exactly in that order. Will, Shingo, Okada, who it hasn't even hit his peak yet, and people are writing him off. Okada is on that list.
Joe?
I've gone Ospreay 1, Shingo 2, and Ishii 3.
All right. And then for Wrestler of the Year, this is supposed to be like MVP quality. I went with Okada 3rd, Naito 2nd, and Kota Ibushi in 1st. Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got Okada 1st. Joe or Joel?
Joe. I'm sorry. I'm going in the same order every time.
All right, so I've got Okada number 1, Naito number 2, and Will Ospreay number 3.
Joe or Damon, I guess, actually. Either one, who cares?
Yeah, Joe.
I've got Ibushi number 3, Naito number 2, and Jay White number 1.
Damon?
Yep. I went Okada number 1, Jay White number 2, and Naito number 3.
All right. So I think this is where we're going to have to break my listeners' hearts a little bit. I don't think we have enough time to get into the mailbag. I should let you guys go at some point here. So let's start some plugs. I know, first of all, Joe, you have a Patreon to plug, so please go ahead and do that.
Yeah, Voices of Wrestling Patreon. If for some reason you are starving for bonus content from the Voices of Wrestling flagship, we offer that. There's 3 price tiers, $1, $2, and what I recommend, it'll get you everything we've ever done or ever will do, the $5 tier. So that's the Patreon. We've got the New Japan 2019 Year in Review book coming out on January 2nd, I believe. So keep your eye out for that. And listen to the flagship every week as well. 3 hours, Rich Craich and I breaking down the entire world of wrestling.
I do want to say, please read the profiles. If you get the ebook, obviously, and please read the profiles. I spend a lot of time writing them, so I very much appreciate it if you could check those profiles out. Damon or Joel, go ahead and plug your little podcast. I know you have a big guest coming up. Or
Damon, you go ahead.
Oh,
You're the hype man.
Please. What am I plugging? What are we doing? What?
You got a big interview coming up tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening for you.
We do. So tomorrow we'll be joined once again by the great Kevin Kelly. We'll talk about the year that was, very similar to what we did here. And we'll just talk about his time in New Japan Pro Wrestling. This will be like the 3rd time he's come on our show, so it's almost become an annual thing. So look forward to hearing that on the Super J-Cast. And again, Super J-Cast, we do that New Japan Pro Wrestling centric podcast on this very Voices of Wrestling podcasting network.
Yes, so, David, we've got to be clear about that. It's a New Japan Pro Wrestling podcast, and our year-end awards are all about New Japan Pro Wrestling, because some people have found that confusing.
Right. I'm glad that we have clarity to that.
You guys get the dumbest fucking dunks. I swear to God. I feel like I get dumb dunks, and then I look at your fucking mention sometimes, and this guy is yelling at you for only having New Japan. Oh my God, it's something.
It's unbelievable. So if you want some dumb dunks, by all the means, I think we're at the by all means, we'll take those. Well, actually, Joel will, because I have nothing to do with it. Very little to do with it. I can't be bothered with. I don't know how you people put up with it. And we do a show every week, so listen in. Super J-Cast. We don't have a Patreon, but you can donate via the red circle. Is it? I don't know, Joe. Come on, I told you you're better. Buy a T-shirt. You can do all that fucking fun stuff. Just go listen to us. We'll give you all that shit.
Yeah, you can donate to this show as well, by the way, Red Circle. I never remember to plug that, but thank you for mentioning it. All right, folks, that will wrap it up. We went over 3 hours. I'm very sorry if you submitted a question. We didn't get to it. It just, we had a lot to cover. Next week, as far as Wrestling Omakase, starting out the 2020 season, we are going to do, as of now, this is the plan. I still have to figure out how the fuck to do it as far as the YouTube stream now. But the plan right now is we are going to go live on January 4th, directly after the Wrestle Kingdom show is over. We're going to go live again on January 5th, directly after the Wrestle Kingdom show is over. You can be able to listen live on YouTube if you want. If you just finished watching, you finished staying up all night like a maniac, and you want some takes right away, we're going to be live both nights, and then obviously we'll combine it into one episode, and you can download it later to get our Wrestle Kingdom takes. But that's the plan. Live coverage, Wrestle Kingdom live stream. We have Chris Samsa on, who does the great stats and everything. He's going to be on for the first time next week on both shows. Paul Vosch, who was on last week, who's great. He's going to be on both shows. Tyler from Voices of Wrestling, who's also on the Super J-Cast server. He's going to be on the January 4th. And Gerard, he said he's going to come on January 5th only if Naito wins. So he does not want to be there to hear me cry, I guess, if Naito doesn't win. So that's the plan for next week. We're going to see you after Wrestle Kingdom both nights. So make sure you follow the Twitter account at Wrestle Omakase. Wrestling, of course, did not fit. And don't forget to check that. We'll go right up on there with the live stream. So that's how you can follow it live at Wrestle Omakase. It'll go up right away. Until then, folks, thank you as always for listening. Thank you if you're a guest for coming on in 2019. And we will see you next time.